Chapter 937. Mo Jiang grabbed a handful of melon seeds and gave 2 to Guizhulian, saying, "This is a world you can't imagine. In short, you have to know that if you want to live a healthy life as a normal person, the life-linking formation between you and your sister must be lifted. Otherwise, if something happens to her, you can't live. If she lives, you live. If she dies, you die." Guizhulian understood such a simple truth, but she was shocked. She thought that she was just a mobile tool to donate organs to Guizhui since she was a child. Now, even her life was prepared for the other party. "Of course," Guizhulian immediately said, "can this formation be lifted?" No one was born with the spirit of sacrifice. She had lived for so many years, and she didn't want to be tortured like this again. Of course, she had to lift the formation as soon as possible. Qiao Jin said, "Of course." Mo Jiang said meaningfully, "You have to know that if the life-linking formation is lifted, with your sister's body, she won't be able to hold on and will die. Do you have the heart to do that?" Guizhulian's face turned pale. Qiao Jin said, "Don't talk about this here." Qiao Jin was even more ruthless. "She has the formation points. No matter what, nothing can happen to her." Guizhui's matter was no better than Song Yanqing's and Ferdinand's. Even if Guizhulian was born for this reason, she was still a life. A person's life was a person's life, and no one was qualified to take her life. Guizhulian's mother had done it herself. And it was obvious that Guizhui knew these things. They trapped Guizhulian in the Gui family for this reason, and didn't dare to let Guizhulian appear in front of the public. At this moment, Qiao Jin's phone rang. She looked and saw that it was Song Yanqing, so she picked it up. "Hao Jiuzong just called me." Song Yanqing, of course, was calling to inform. "He wants to borrow my power to investigate Guizhulian's whereabouts." After all, Hao Jiuzong was from Shanghai, and his power in the capital was far less than that of the Song family. It was natural for him to ask the Song family for help. Qiao Jin said naturally, just brushing him off. Hao Jiuzong certainly didn't know that Guizhulian's disappearance had something to do with Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing laughed and said, "Of course I won't tell him that he's with you now." Qiao Jin nodded. "I almost understand what's going on. Guizhulian can't go back. Her mother plans to make a move and completely give her life to Guizhui." Song Yanqing said, "I know. I will deal with Hao Jiuzong. You hide her for the time being and don't let her out." Qiao Jin, "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Guizhulian was a little nervous when she heard that they were talking about her. Her tears were almost gone. Qiao Jin looked at her and said, "Don't worry, just stay here and don't go out. I'll remove the life-linking formation on you. You can live like a normal person from now on. Once the Gui clan's matter is settled, you can appear in front of others. You don't need to worry about the Gui clan anymore." Guizhulian was still afraid. But there's still brother Jiuzong. Hao Jiuzong was Guizhui's fiancé and was also from a big family in Shanghai. Guizhulian seemed to be somewhat familiar with him. After all, it was Hao Jiuzong who asked Song Yanqing to investigate Guizhulian's whereabouts, which meant that Hao Jiuzong knew something. Mo Jiang asked her again, "Who is Hao Jiuzong?" Guizhulian hesitated and said with a bit of sadness, "My sister's fiancé." Chapter 938. Mo Jiang was indeed a woman who often acted nowadays. Although her acting wasn't good, she was quite good at judging other people's emotions. His interest was immediately piqued, and a light flashed in his eyes. "You like Hao Jiuzong?" Her direct question made Guizhulian look at her in shock. However, she quickly lowered her face and said sadly, "He's my sister's fiancé. I know it's wrong for me to like him, but," she couldn't help but say sadly, "he said that as long as I'm obedient and treat my sister well, he'll take care of me for the rest of my life." Guizhulian had been trapped in the Gui family and had seen very few men. It wasn't hard to understand why she was attracted to the tall and handsome Hao Jiuzong. After all, she was a young girl. Mo Jiang was speechless. Qiao Jin was speechless. Mo Jiang said suspiciously, "I don't understand the direction of this story." Qiao Jin didn't intend to ask in detail. She just said, "So Hao Jiuzong is helping to track you down because he wants you to go back. Does he know that you'll lose your life?" Guizhulian shook her head and said, "I don't know." She didn't know if Hao Jiuzong knew about it or not. Xiao Jin said, "It doesn't matter if he knows or not. In short, he wants you to go back and save Guizhui's life. You can't go back. You want to live too, so stay here. Mo Jiang will take care of you. If you really want to go out, you can follow Mo Jiang to the set. No one will catch you." With Mo Jiang's strength, ordinary people couldn't do anything to the people around her. Mo Jiang was interested. She touched Guizhulian's chin and said, "You're young and good-looking. Why can't you figure out that you like men?" Xiao Jin was speechless. Guizhulian looked up at her with teary eyes. Mo Jiang sneered, "Poor thing, all men are pigs. Your sister is not a good person, and her fiancé is even worse. Your family members are not good people either. You don't have to go back. Just stay by my side in the future. You can have any spare tire you want." Xiao Jin interrupted the bad thoughts that Mo Jiang was trying to instill in him and said to Guizhulian, "That's all for now. Are you hungry? Get Mo Jiang to order takeout. I need to go back tonight, so you can stay here. If anything happens, just give me a call. Sometimes, there are 2 other girls in this house. Their experiences are similar to yours. You don't have to be afraid." Guizhulian nodded and asked with uncertainty, "Will I really not be caught?" "That won't happen." Mo Jiang said coquettishly, "If you were taken away right under my nose, wouldn't I lose face? Don't worry, no matter who comes looking for you, I'll take care of it for you. I guarantee that there won't be any problems." Xiao Jin asked, "What have you been watching recently?" Mo Jiang said, "My script just happened to be at the demonization stage. I kill people like flies." Xiao Jin was speechless. Guizhulian clearly did not understand Mo Jiang's occupation, but Xiao Jin was going to leave. Of course, before she left, she removed the life-binding array on Guizhulian. The moment the life-binding array was removed, Guizhulian felt her body lighten. She could not describe the good feeling, but she felt as if a heavy burden that had been weighing on her for many years had been lifted. Guizhui, who was far away in the Gui family's mansion, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Guizhui's mother, who was standing beside her, screamed, "Zhui, what happened to you? What happened to you?" Chapter 939. Guizhui spat out a mouthful of blood and felt her whole body become heavy. She was in pain, but she couldn't tell where the pain was coming from. Her face turned pale, and she grabbed her mother's arm tightly, saying in pain, "Mom, I'm in so much pain now, so much pain." Qing Yujun looked at her daughter and said in a trembling voice, "What's going on? What's going on?" She hugged Guizhui, feeling scared. "You haven't had a relapse for a long time, have you? What's going on, doctor?" she screamed. Fortunately, the Gui family had a family doctor, so he could observe Guizhui's condition at any time. Gui Zicheng and his father, Gui Jieshe, had been taken to the police station and hadn't returned yet. The Gui family was in chaos today, and Guizhulian had run away. They hadn't found her until now. Guizhui's sudden relapse scared Qing Yujun. She treated Guizhui as her life, so she didn't want to see anything happen to her. The family doctor came to check Guizhui's condition. He frowned and said directly, "We don't have the conditions to do the test. Send her to the hospital immediately. Hurry up." Qing Yujun was dumbfounded when she heard that she would be sent to the hospital. Her daughter's immune system had been very weak since birth, and she was easily infected. When she was young, she had a particularly serious illness. Fortunately, everything changed with Guizhulian's birth. The older Guizhui got, the better her body recovered. It had been 2 years since her last relapse. Because of this, Qing Yujun was completely unprepared. Hearing the doctor's words, she could only ask the doctor what was going on, but the doctor just shook his head. The Gui family didn't have the conditions to do the test. Guizhui's condition had to wait for the hospital to finish the examination. Qing Yujun suddenly thought of Guizhulian, who had run away. Where did she go? When she rushed to the hospital with Guizhui and saw her daughter in pain, Qing Yujun's heart was about to break. Guizhui had been her life since she was a child. She valued her daughter more than anything else, so she didn't want anything to happen to her. Looking at Guizhui's pale face and how she was in so much pain that she looked like she was about to faint, she thought of the missing Guizhulian and suddenly had an ominous feeling in her heart. Left with no choice, Cheng Yujun immediately made a call. After the call was connected, Cheng Yujun's voice trembled. Jane, something happened. Can you come to the capital? I think something is wrong with Zhui. Her sister went missing today. The person on the other end of the line didn't say anything and quickly hung up. Cheng Yujun hugged Zhui, seeing her painful expression. She kept hugging her. Zhui, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, mother will save you, mother will definitely find someone to save you. Zhui pinched the corner of her clothes and said with some pain, want to see, brother Jiozong. She wanted to see the person she liked. I'll call them right away. Mom will call them right away. Hearing this, Cheng Yujun immediately took out her mobile phone and called Hao Jiozong. Zhui suddenly had an accident, and as her fiancé, he was also in the capital, so it was reasonable for him to come and see Zhui. He would definitely find Gujulian. This was his promise to himself. Thinking of Gujulian, a trace of hatred flashed across Cheng Yujun's eyes. She was born to sacrifice everything for her sister. How dare she run away? Chapter 940. Xiao Jin went straight home after settling Gujulian's matter. Something would happen to Guzhui, but she wouldn't die. After all, she was mostly focused on her physical condition. Gujulian had donated her bone marrow, and her illness was now getting better. He just didn't know how Gujulian's mother could be so ruthless as to want to kill Gujulian. Now that Gujulian was with Mo Jiang, Xiao Jin was very relieved. Mu Qiji also came home. They must be wondering what Xiao Jin was doing. They had made several calls, and Xiao Jin should go back. When he returned to the Mu family, it was rare for the Mu family to gather together. Everyone was there. Muzilian sat next to Muzichu, slumped on the sofa and played mobile games. Muzichu sat next to him, and Mu Qiji sat on the other sofa with his legs elegantly crossed. Qiao Fei and Mu Jinming sat together, and Mu Xiangshan was fiddling with something on the table in the living room. Seeing that Xiao Jin was back, the Mu family turned to look at him. Qiao Fei complained as usual. Jin, I told you that big brother is coming back today. Why are you still coming home so late? I was busy with something. After Xiao Jin said this, he greeted Mu Qiji. Mu Qiji. No matter how long it had been, she was still not used to Xiao Jin calling her by her name. But she couldn't help it. She was too willful. Mu Xiangshan looked up from a pile of things and asked her, "What did you do?" There were many things in the Guo family today. Mu Xiangshan received news that someone seemed to be missing in the Mu family. Thinking of what Xiao Jin said, Mu Xiangshan now seriously suspected that the missing person was with Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin smiled at him. His expression meant that as long as he understood, there was no need to ask. How could Mu Xiangshan not understand? He sighed. He felt that he could not control Xiao Jin. When the rest of the Mu family saw that Mu Xiangshan still had a secret with Xiao Jin, they were a little surprised. Mu Jinming asked, "What are you busy with?" Xiao Jin walked over and sat down on the single-seater sofa. He said in a casual tone, "I was just busy with something. My friend needs my help with something." "What's wrong?" She looked at Mu Qiji and changed the topic with a smile. "Big brother, why are you dating Song Yanqing's sister?" "Qiao Fei, we've already discussed this topic. It's your fault for not coming back. Let's not talk about it now." Xiao Jin. Mu Qiji saw Xiao Jin's stagnant appearance and chuckled. "Naturally, we met by chance abroad. We met and chatted and had a meal together. We felt that the chat was quite pleasant. After getting along for a few days, we decided to try dating. A few days later, this speed was really fast." Xiao Jin nodded. He was no longer curious. Just then, Mu Xiangshan called again. He picked up the phone and went upstairs. Xiao Jin glanced at Mu Xiangshan. Mu Jinming's face suddenly turned serious. "Xiao Jin, there are some things that we should talk about while the whole family is here." Xiao Jin. Another big criticism session. When Muzilian heard his father's words, he glanced at Xiao Jin and slowly sat up straight. He did not want to be affected by the storm later. After all, this kind of thing had happened before. Xiao Fei agreed with Mu Jinming. "Since your big brother is here, we should talk to you properly. Do you know that your form teacher called?" Chapter 941. Yes, as a student, Xiao Jin had to face the same problems that every student would face. Even if she was already in university. Your homeroom teacher said that you often apply for leave. How many times did you go this semester? What's more ridiculous is that we didn't know you applied for leave. Some of the fake Xiao Fei didn't know what was going on. She didn't even know who applied for Xiao Jin. She even suspected that it was Muzilian and Muzichu. Mu Jinming also looked at Xiao Jin and said earnestly, "Xiao Jin, what's the matter? We're a family now. Can't we talk about it? What are you doing when you apply for leave so often?" Xiao Jin blinked and answered naturally, "I'm going to do something big." Everyone, Mu Qiji also looked at Xiao Jin with disapproval. However, now that his parents were criticizing Xiao Jin, he didn't say anything. Muzichu and Muzilian, the two insiders, watched the show silently. "What big things are you doing?" Xiao Fei snorted. "What big things can a girl like you do?" Xiao Jin said seriously, Fei, this is my secret. It's not suitable to tell you now. Look at Xiang Shan. He never talks much." Xiao Fei, "Your grandfather doesn't care about you at all." "We care about you." Mu Jinming didn't quite agree with Xiao Jin. "You apply for leave so often. Should we not ask about it? Is that showing respect to you?" Xiao Jin nodded. "I know what you mean. I also know that you care about me, but there are some things that I can't tell you now. I've already said that I read fortune-telling shops online. Sometimes, not only do I need to read fortunes online, but I also need to help people deal with misfortune in real life. This involves feudal superstition. No matter how I explain, you won't believe me." Mu Qiji, Mu Jinming, and Xiao Fei, Muzilian couldn't help but laugh out loud. His laughter immediately attracted the attention of his family members. Muzilian coughed. Don't look at me. I couldn't help it." Muzichu pinched Muzilian's waist, signaling him to be quiet. Now that the flames of war were focused on Xiao Jin, there was no need to attract any extra attention. When Mu Qiji heard this, he was a little confused. "Are you serious about opening a fortune-telling shop online? When did you learn how to deceive people?" Xiao Jin waved his hand. "I don't lie. I usually don't lie. Besides, my calculations are very accurate, and my business is good." Xiao Fei couldn't help but ask, "Jin, what's wrong with you? How can you use words to fool us? Don't tell me you're outside. Did he do something illegal?" When he thought of this, Xiao Fei's face turned a little pale. Xiao Jin sighed. "It's not what you think. I do things properly." However, the more she clarified, the more the Mu family didn't believe her. At this moment, Mu Xiangshan came down from a phone call. When he heard Xiao Fei and the rest questioning Xiao Jin, he immediately put his hands behind his back and said impatiently, "Hurry up and tell them to rebuild their worldview. You don't have to find an excuse to dance in the future." Xiao Jin, everyone, Muzilian looked at Mu Xiangshan in shock. "Grandpa, you know about this?" Mu Xiangshan also looked at Muzilian with a rare look of surprise. "Even you know about it?" Xiao Jin didn't mention what happened to Muzilian, so Mu Xiangshan naturally didn't know that his grandson knew about it. Muzichu also narrowed his eyes. "You all know about it? Very good, only he didn't know." Mu Qiji. Chapter 942. As the eldest brother, Mu Qiji felt that he hadn't been home for so long that he was excluded from the family's secrets. Mu Jinming couldn't take it anymore. "You know everything? What are you trying to say? Dad, what's going on between you and Xiao Jin?" "What do you mean what's going on?" Mu Xiangshan stood by the stairs and sneered at them. "I can't interfere in her affairs. We don't belong to the same world. If you want to know, ask her." Xiao Jin also felt that Mu Xiangshan's words made sense. Sooner or later she would have to say it. Now, Muzilian and Muzichu already knew. Looking at Muzichu's expression, she was 80% sure that he had been suspicious for a long time. She thought for a moment and organized her words. "Okay, I'll tell you what I did outside when I asked for leave. I'll also let you know that this world isn't what you think it is." Mu Jinming and the other three already knew what was going on, so they weren't surprised at this time. Xiao Fei held Mu Jinming's arm and looked at Xiao Jin worriedly. "Jin, are you?" At that time, she was too stimulated and hurt her brain. So, she didn't have a good time. Actually, there are not only ordinary people in this world. Other than ordinary people, there are also spiritual readers. Xiao Jin said this set of words that she had said countless times. The Mu family were all high-quality people. When she spoke, they listened carefully. Even if their minds were thinking about whether Xiao Jin's illness was serious enough to be sent to the hospital for observation. Xiao Jin only briefly talked about how she dealt with spiritual readers outside. About her awakening, she said that she was stimulated, so she awakened. Then she knew these things. In fact, it wasn't a very long story. She finished telling it in a few minutes. By the time she finished speaking, Xiao Fei's mouth was so wide open that it could fit a goose egg. Mu Zhenming looked at Xiao Jin and said in a low voice, "Why don't you make an appointment with a doctor tomorrow?" Xiao Jin, Mu Qiji was immersed in the shock of what she said. For a moment, he didn't know whether to believe it or not. At this time, Mu Zilian stood up. "Dad, Mom, I can prove that Xiao Jin is telling the truth. Because I met..." As soon as he said this, Xiao Fei screamed, "Your sister is crazy too?" Mu Zilian. He was a little indignant. He looked at Xiao Jin and said, "Quick, show her what you're capable of. Teleport with her." Xiao Jin, she sighed softly, "I know you won't believe me." Therefore, there was a very simple method to verify. There were no servants in the hall now. She made a simple gesture. In an instant, all the things on the table flew into the air. They floated in the air for a second, then returned to the table following Xiao Jin's gesture. Mu Zhenming and Mu Qiji's shocked gazes followed those items. Xiao Fei glanced at them and then at Xiao Jin. Her mouth was agape, and it was as if fireworks had exploded in her mind. She was so stunned that she was caught off guard and had no idea what had happened. Now, her mind was completely blank. Mu Xiangshan saw this with his own eyes and sighed. Mu Zilian shed tears of envy beside Mu Zichu. "Coach, I want to learn too." He wanted to learn too. "Ah, I'm so jealous." Chapter 943. Mu Zilian had never envied anyone since he was young. He was only envious of Xiao Jin's ability. Unfortunately, Xiao Jin said that this thing depended on fate. If it didn't awaken, there was no chance. No matter how envious he was, it was useless. Even though Mu Zichu knew the truth, now that he saw that Xiao Jin really had such incredible power, his eyes darkened. He sighed softly in his heart. At that time, he should have noticed that she was different. She was completely different from ordinary people. The things she came into contact with were not what ordinary people could imagine. The Mu family fell into a dead silence. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Mu Zhenming and Mu Qiji were completely shocked, speechless. After all, anyone's worldview was refreshed at this moment. Xiao Jin stood up and said softly, "You probably need some time to digest. I'll go up first. Call me if you need anything." Everyone was still silent, so no one replied to her. When she was about to go upstairs, Mu Xiangshan asked again, "Will you be in trouble if you interfere in the Guo family's affairs?" Xiao Jin shook her head. Hearing her affirmation, Mu Xiangshan felt a lot more at ease. He sighed again. "I went to the detention center today and saw Guojiesher. He should be released soon. He's too old and has problems. Even if he's convicted, he can still be released for medical treatment. I saw that he didn't look good. He shouldn't be able to hold on." Perhaps Guojiesher was still affected by the fact that he had been caught. So when Mu Xiangshan went to see him, Guojiesher's condition wasn't very good. He even looked a little dispirited. He heard that there were some conflicts with Guo Zicheng in there, which indirectly proved that Guo Zicheng might be the one who poisoned him. The reason was simple: revenge for his mother. Now that this matter was analyzed, Guo Zicheng and Guojiesher were about to fall out. Xiao Jin, whether he can hold on or not, his life is good enough. Her words were a little cold, but she was right. Guojiesher had worked hard all his life and even killed his own wife. In the end, he was still able to live peacefully until now. His life was too good. Even if he was convicted now, it wouldn't hurt him at all. He had already enjoyed most of what he should have. He could only blame the ending for coming too late. Mu Xiangshan nodded. Alright, you can go up first. At this time, there were a few more wooden figures in the living room. Only Musilian looked left and right and comforted them. Although there are things in this world that you can't understand, it's good that you know now. Besides, Xiao Jin said that we might not be able to come into contact with these things in our lifetime. Whether or not he knew the truth didn't make much of a difference. Of course, Musilian was just spouting nonsense. If he had not directly entered the mountain of laws and witnessed the true abnormalities, then he would have already turned silly by now. Mu Jinming and Mu Qiji were actually rational people. They were just shocked and found it hard to comprehend when they found out about such a ridiculous thing. Xiao Fei reacted and patted his face. Oh my god, Jean has the legendary superpower? Mu Xiangshan, what superpower? You don't know anything. She's an array master. Xiao Fei? What was the difference? What was the difference? Chapter 944. It didn't matter what the people downstairs were thinking. Xiao Jin said what needed to be said and left them some time to digest it. He went back to his room to wash up. He had to visit Guizhulian tomorrow morning. The array was solved. She was fine now. However, she had been trapped for so long. She was not in a good state of mind now. Mo Jiang had to go to the set during the day. Guizhulian couldn't go outside before the Gui family's matter was completely solved. In less than half an hour, Xiao Fei, who seemed to have finished digesting, came knocking on her door. Mu Qiji and Mu Jinming were not here. It was not suitable for them to intervene in such a ridiculous matter. Of course, Xiao Fei was the most suitable person to ask. Xiao Fei looked at Xiao Jin. Seeing that the person in front of her was still well-behaved, she felt relieved. However, she felt a little sad. Her tone was a little awkward. You are an array master. You were awakened at that time. Was it a big shock? She thought that Xiao Jin didn't care about it after such a long time. Now she knew that Xiao Jin was awakened. It proved that what happened at that time was a big shock to her. She didn't care because she had come into contact with another world. The shock of committing suicide was big enough. In fact, it was not a shock. It was mainly because she committed suicide that her soul was reawakened. The fusion of the memory fragments turned her into the present her. Xiao Fei heard and felt sad. In the end, I am sorry. If it weren't for me, I would rather you not be like this now. Xiao Jin paused. Why? It's good now. I don't mean to blame you. It's good for me to be awakened. At least I can see a different world. I was too weak before. But I hope that you will always be under my protection. If I took good care of you, you wouldn't be who you are today, right? Xiao Fei's tone was very sad. Those things would be forgotten even if they were not mentioned. It's really okay. Xiao Jin looked at Xiao Fei and said indifferently, you don't have to think too much about it. Look at me, am I not fine now? I've really forgotten about the past. Today, I'm telling you all these things because I can't hide it from you forever. Otherwise, he would have to find excuses to take leave in the future. But Xiao Fei burst into tears. She had always been a soft-hearted person. At this moment, when she thought of the pain that Xiao Jin had experienced in the past, her heart ached. If she had really protected Xiao Jin well, how could Xiao Jin have awakened? This awakening was bought with a painful price. She would rather not know anything. That way, their family could still live happily. You have to think positively. Xiao Jin sighed. He had to persuade her. If I don't awaken, maybe I'll still be the same as before. Musilian and Musichu still won't accept me. I won't come to the Mu family, and we won't be living together like now. Isn't that good? Xiao Fei froze for a moment. Xiao Jin was telling the truth. If it weren't for the awakening by suicide, she might still be living alone outside. Occasionally, Xiao Fei would go to see her. She was still the dull and weak Xiao Jin. There were some things that could not be predicted accurately. However, Xiao Fei cried even harder. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I should have brought you back with me. It's all your brother's fault. Xiao Jin. Chapter 945. Xiao Fei felt that she hadn't done enough. She also felt that if Musilian and the others hadn't targeted Xiao Jin back then they wouldn't have been like this. Both were her own flesh and blood. Her sons didn't like her, so she cared about their opinions. As a result, she forgot that Xiao Jin was only a 20-year-old girl at that time. Her mind was very fragile. Xiao Fei thought that after taking care of Xiao Jin for 20 years, she had her own motherly love, which was enough. Of course, she would subconsciously make up for the other three. She completely forgot that Xiao Jin had always been alone. The three of them grew up in the Mu family and lived a luxurious life. Xiao Jin was now immersed in the past and everything faded away. She didn't reveal her own feelings, so it wasn't too obvious. Now, she was just comforting her. Everything was over. She was fine now. Xiao Fei cried for a while and gradually stopped crying. Then she asked, "How did you do that just now? Can you do it again for me to see?" Xiao Jin. She didn't follow Xiao Fei's meaning. She just smiled and said, "This is a formation. You can also see it as the kind of superpower that you understand. However, superpowers can't be used casually. At least, it's best not to use it on people." Xiao Fei was still a little confused. Formation? Xiao Jin, you're not a psychic. In fact, it's useless to know so much. If you want to know, I'll tell you slowly in the future. There's too much information at the moment. Xiao Fei nodded and suddenly said, "How did Dad and Qi Lian know?" Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Grandpa has long known that there's something wrong with me. He has lived for a long time and has seen a lot. After I told him, he accepted it. As for Qi Lian, he accidentally encountered a special world when he was in the army last time. This world is the world of psychics. It's just that you don't understand. He was expelled from the army for this reason. However, some things can't be said. Fei, you should understand, right?" Xiao Fei suddenly understood. No wonder Musilian couldn't tell the reason why he was expelled from the army. It seemed like this was how he was expelled. She was still a little worried. "So you're dealing with this spiritual reader outside, but why do you have to deal with it? Will there be any danger?" In Xiao Fei's mind, people with supernatural abilities would always do incredible things. The probability of harming society was relatively high. Why would Xiao Jin deal with these things? Xiao Jin, when someone has the ability, all kinds of situations will occur. There are some things that others can't solve, but I can. There will be rewards. This is the reason why I opened a fortune-telling shop online. No wonder you kept talking about fortune-telling during that time, Xiao Fei mumbled. She didn't believe her just because she said it. However, since Xiao Jin had already said so, they could only slowly digest it. Whether or not they could really keep their composure would depend on how they accepted it later. Xiao Fei thought for a moment and asked, "What's going on with the Lord's song?" She suddenly thought of a suspicious point from a few months ago. It was said that Lord Song almost had an accident. That night, the Song family asked Xiao Jin to go over. Could it be that she did something? Xiao Jin shook his head slightly. "I can't tell you about Song Yanqing for the time being. I'll tell you slowly when I have time." Xiao Fei could still maintain a certain level of calmness. "Then have a good rest. I'll go out first." She said good night to Xiao Jin. Chapter 946. However, after leaving the house, Xiao Fei's expression suddenly changed. "Musilian, come here." "Musilian? What did it have to do with him?" Xiao Jin also heard Xiao Fei's shout. She chuckled and went back to her room to look at her phone for a while. After a while, Song Yanqing called her. It was mainly about Guizhui. She was suddenly sent to the hospital for a checkup, and it was said that she was in a bad condition. Xiao Jin didn't deny it. "I removed the life-linking array. She will definitely be affected." Song Yanqing asked, "Will she die?" Xiao Jin, "Not really. Based on her previous physical condition, Guizhulian has shared her burden for so many years. I don't think she will die." Song Yanqing chuckled. How Jiuzong couldn't find Guizhulian, so he came to the Song family at night. When he heard that something happened to Guizhui, he rushed to the hospital. However, compared to this matter, I found something interesting. Xiao Jin, "What is it?" Song Yanqing, "I think something happened to Guizhui, but it's not as important as Guizhulian's disappearance. People's feelings were biased. Hao Jiuzong seemed to be worried about Guizhui, but when he looked for Guizhulian in the afternoon, Song Yanqing saw a slight difference. It was a very subtle difference. Perhaps even Hao Jiuzong himself didn't know. Qiao Jin, thinking of what Guizhulian said, she paused and said, Guizhulian likes him, but she didn't say anything specific. She only said that Hao Jiuzong said that as long as Guizhulian is obedient, he will take care of Guizhulian for the rest of her life. Guizhulian is Guizhui's sister. As a brother-in-law, isn't it too much for him to say this? Song Yanqing, the two sisters are quite extraordinary. Qiao Jin nodded. That's not important. What's important is that we have to settle the Guo family's matter. It's not like Guizhulian can't return to the Guo family. However, he had to return to the Guo family as a normal person and ensure that she would be fine. There were array points on Guizhulian, so Qiao Jin would at least protect her. She looked at Guizhulian's appearance and saw that she was just a little fragile. She had never come out before, so her words were always a little naive. Didn't you leave her with Mo Jiang? Song Yanqing said, I think it's better for Mo Jiang to keep an eye on her. Guizhulian isn't like Meng Qingyu and Yang Qiulu. She's a girl from the Guo family, so it's not good for you to interfere. Mo Jiang can help you keep an eye on her. Qiao Jin nodded and said, I'll do it tomorrow. You can keep an eye on Hao Jiuzong. As long as he can't find Guizhulian, we don't need to worry about anything else. She wanted to help Guizhulian out of trouble, but she didn't want to completely solve everything. The Guo family's mess, of course, should be cleaned up by the Guo family. She chatted with Song Yanqing for a while. Song Yanqing said that Hao Jiuzong would probably be with him for the next few days. He needed Song Yanqing's help to solve the Guo sisters' matter, so it wouldn't be convenient for him to meet with Qiao Jin for the next few days. Qiao Jin didn't think it was a big deal. She said goodnight to Song Yanqing and hung up the phone. Although she told the Mu family about the spiritualist, Qiao Jin knew that the Mu family had a strong ability to accept things, so she didn't need to worry about any accidents. Muzilian was now being scolded by Qiao Fei downstairs. She smiled, lay on the bed and began to sleep. She had a good night's sleep until she woke up in the morning. Chapter 947. There was a call to Qiao Jin. It was Guizhulian. Guizhulian's tone was full of fear. Miss Qiao, can you come over and keep me company? She was really scared. She had finally escaped from the Guo family and was brought here by Qiao Jin. Mo Jiang was there last night, but Mo Jiang had to film. She couldn't go out for the time being. Mo Jiang didn't take her with him. He was taken away by his agent early in the morning. Guizhulian stayed here alone. Without Mo Jiang, she felt very uneasy in a strange environment. Guizhulian was scared when she heard the noise from next door. She was afraid that the door would be kicked open and the Guo family and Hao Jiuzhong's people would break in and take her back. She came out in a hurry and didn't have her phone with her, only a fake ID. Mo Jiang left her money, but she didn't dare to use it. She couldn't help calling Qiao Jin. She was also afraid to disturb Qiao Jin's rest. Qiao Jin didn't have a bad temper when he woke up. He said coldly, Hey, I'll be right there. What do you want to eat? I'll bring it to you when I come. I'm fine with anything. I'm not picky, Guizhulian said in a low voice. Hearing Qiao Jin's promise, she relaxed a little. After hanging up the phone, Qiao Jin got up and washed quickly. When he came downstairs, Mu Qizhi and Mu Zhenming were already having breakfast. Both of them were busy. Now, Mu Qizhi was staying at home to help Mu Zhenming with the company's matters. Both of them seemed to have accepted last night's incident very well. When they saw Qiao Jin early in the morning, they naturally greeted her, morning. Qiao Jin also responded with a smile, morning. Mu Zhenming drank the millet porridge and said to Qiao Jin, even if you have the ability, don't run around blindly. You're a student now. Don't get involved in dangerous things that you shouldn't. Qiao Jin said, no, I only accept ordinary business. Mu Zhenming. Qiao Jin sat down and finished her meal. She ate almost as fast as the Mu father and son duo. She was going out early in the morning, not to go to school. Although they wanted to ask, Mu Qizhi and Mu Zhenming remained silent in the end. Qiao Jin did not take the Mu family's car. Instead, he took a taxi to Meng Qingyu's house. He bought fresh and delicious steamed buns and soy milk for Gujulian downstairs. When she reached upstairs, she gently knocked on the door. There was no response from the other side of the door. Gujulian trembled when she heard the knock on the door until Xiao Jin said softly, "It's me." Hearing this, Gujulian immediately breathed a sigh of relief and quickly opened the door for Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin walked into the room and saw Gujulian wearing Meng Qingyu's pajamas. Her complexion was obviously much better than when he found her yesterday, but she still looked a little pale. "Miss Qiao." Seeing Xiao Jin, Gujulian could finally force a smile. Xiao Jin handed her the steamed buns and soy milk. "Have breakfast first." In order to prevent his agent from discovering that there was someone in the room, Mo Jiang left directly. He did not buy breakfast for Gujulian either. When Gujulian woke up, she was alone in the room. She was so scared that her scalp went numb. Xiao Jin thought about what Gujulian lacked and said, "Did you only have a fake ID when you came out? You need to get a new one. I'll buy you a cell phone and a SIM card." She used Mo Jiang's old cell phone to contact Xiao Jin. This woman changed her cell phone as fast as she changed her clothes. Gujulian trembled. "If I get a new one, will it be discovered?" Chapter 948. Xiao Jin smiled. "No, I have connections. I can do it for you directly and no one will find out. But you can't use Gujulian's name now. I can erase the traces of your existence, but I can't stop you from using your previous information. How Jiuzong may find out. Think about it." Gujulian's eyes dimmed when she heard Hao Jiuzong's name. She didn't like Gujulian's name, but she had been using it for many years and was used to it. But she also knew that if she continued to use this name, she would still be found out. She thought for a while and nodded. Xiao Jin continued, "If the Guo family is fine, you can continue to use your original name. Now I'm just giving you a new identity and a fake name." "Gujulian, thank you." She looked at Xiao Jin and couldn't help but ask, "Miss Qiao, I don't understand why you helped me." Last night, she knew that Xiao Jin wasn't an ordinary person. But even if he wasn't an ordinary person, she didn't know why Xiao Jin helped her. Xiao Jin wouldn't tell them about the array point, because even she didn't know what it was for now. She said naturally, "I'm very kind." Gujulian. She was just naive and inexperienced, but she wasn't stupid. She felt that Xiao Jin had some ulterior motive, but there was nothing on her that was worth Xiao Jin's scheme. So, what was his purpose? She was just a daughter of the Guo family. Many people didn't even know about her existence. She had dedicated herself to her sister for many years. She didn't know what could be on her that Xiao Jin wanted. Since Xiao Jin could be a guest of the Guo family, it meant that she was also a daughter of a rich family. She was so noble and elegant, and she had a sense of security that convinced him. So, what was her purpose? As long as she didn't hand her back to the Guo family, it would be fine. Xiao Jin patted Gujulian's head and was about to call He Yao when He Yao called. She raised her eyebrows, knowing that He Yao probably had something to say. After answering the phone, He Yao said, "Xiao Jin, let me tell you something. Didn't you meet a woman named Zhong Jian when you went to Xiangdu last time? She's from the spirit group in Xiangdu. Last night, she suddenly came to the capital in the middle of the night. We asked her if she was here to pass on something, but she didn't reply. She only said that it was a private trip here. Our people found that she went to the Guo family." He Yao paused. "We found out that you and your grandfather have been to the Guo family. What's the matter with the Guo family?" Xiao Jin grunted. "Zhong Jian?" Xiao Jin had a vague impression of the woman who was looking for trouble in Xiangdu. She was a member of the Xiangdu Ling group. Last time, when Xiao Jin went to take away you, Zhong Jian jumped out to stop her. Xiao Jin chuckled and said, "I know what's going on. The Guo family is fine. I just happen to need your help. There's someone on my side who needs to create a new identity card. It's a little girl. Is this troublesome?" "Of course not." He Yao agreed. "Just give me a photo of her." Xiao Jin, "Okay." She hung up the phone and was about to take a photo of Gujulian when she suddenly felt that someone was coming from downstairs. She just felt that something was wrong. She activated the array and saw that it was Hao Jiuzong. She looked again and saw that the person they were talking about on the phone was beside him. Zhong Jiang. It seemed that she had used some special means to find her. Qiao Jin had expected this, but he didn't expect that the person who activated the life-linking array was Zhong Jiang from the spirit group. Chapter 949. It was only Zhong Jiang and Hao Jiuzong. As for why the two of them were in cahoots, Qiao Jin did not know for the time being. She saw someone come and said, "Hao Jiuzong is here." Gujulian's face turned pale and her scalp went numb. She was probably too nervous, so she wasn't thinking about her feelings for Hao Jiuzong. Instead, she was thinking that if Hao Jiuzong found out, he would definitely bring her back to the Guo family. Gujulian immediately cried, "I don't want to go back, I don't want to go back." Qiao Jin put her finger between her lips again. "Sure, I said I won't let you be brought back. You don't have to be afraid. Just don't make a sound now." Gujulian heard her words and immediately shut her mouth. She trembled and didn't dare to make a sound. Gradually, the sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the corridor. There were quite a number of people who could be heard. They didn't make any other sound. The footsteps gradually came to Meng Qingyu's room. Knock, knock, knock. There was a soft knock on the door. It was neither fast nor slow, as if it was extremely patient. For Gujulian, who was now like a bird startled by the twang of a bow, any movement was enough to scare her. She was too scared. This extreme fear actually made her hair stand on end. She stared at the door and didn't dare to make a sound. Knock, knock, knock. There was no movement, so the other party knocked again. She heard a familiar voice. It was the man's low and slightly impatient voice. "Just open it." It was too easy for them to open the security door of an ordinary house. The door was quickly unlocked. Gujulian's eyes widened and she almost fainted. Qiao Jin covered her mouth. He didn't want to teleport Gujulian anywhere else. Now that the door was opened, she could even turn around and leisurely look at Hao Jiuzong. She had already seen Hao Jiuzong last time. This time, he came in with a look of impatience. Looking around the room, Qiao Jin and Gujulian were clearly in the middle of the room, but they didn't seem to see them. Zhong Jiang sensed that the location was here. Her face was solemn and she frowned slightly. "Strange, I clearly feel that it's here." Gujulian was stunned when she heard this. She was scared at first, and now she was even more scared. However, she found that after they came in, it was as if they didn't see them. This was impossible. Was he acting? But they didn't look like writers. Hao Jiuzong also came over. There was no one in the living room. He stood there, and a storm was brewing in his dark eyes. Gujulian looked straight at his face. Her heart was flustered and at the same time, it kept falling. He was afraid that something would happen to her sister. Now that he had personally come to look for her, she could almost imagine what would happen to her if she went back. After all, he was the person she liked. Looking at Hao Jiuzong's face, she burst into tears. Warm tears fell onto Qiao Jin's palm. Qiao Jin. To be honest, she felt terrible. She had always been a clean freak, but it wasn't as serious as Song Yanqing's. Now that she saw Gujulian crying so pitifully, she endured it. Hao Jiuzong stood in the living room, just a step away from Gujulian. His subordinates went into the bedroom one by one and even checked the wardrobe. They came out and reported, "Young master, we didn't find anything." Chapter 950. She wasn't in the room. There was no one in the room. But judging from the traces on the table, Zhong Jiang frowned. Someone lives here. Someone was here just now. They must have found out. Someone must be helping her, and he is very alert. They came suddenly, and the other party reacted too quickly. However, she didn't expect that Qiao Jin and Gujulian were right in front of them. Watching all this, they didn't make a sound. No one could see them. Hao Jiuzong stared at the glass of water on the table. Gujulian drank it in the morning, and there was still half of it left. This trace meant that someone was here. Maybe she ran away. Zhong Jiang said to him, "I need to check her whereabouts again." Hao Jiuzong smelled a familiar scent in the air. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "She didn't go far. She should be nearby. Her scent is in this room." Guizhulian, she stared. She didn't expect Hao Jiuzong to remember her scent. Xiao Jin. Xiao Fei's cliché TV dramas were not without reason. Life came from reality. The key was that Zhong Jian was probably a gossip. Hearing this, she glanced at Hao Jiuzong and sneered. Young Master Jiuzong, you can even remember her scent? Hao Jiuzong turned around and glanced at Zhong Jian with a gloomy look. Zhong Jian's expression changed gradually. She restrained herself. Sorry, I talked too much? She was an array master, and Hao Jiuzong was an ordinary person. But she seemed to be afraid of Hao Jiuzong. Hao Jiuzong didn't say anything else. He looked around and asked someone to put something in the corner of the living room in front of Guizhulian and Xiao Jin. It was a bug and a surveillance device. It seemed that he didn't believe that Guizhulian could run far. All this was done under Xiao Jin's nose. After they left, the door was closed again. Xiao Jin let go of Guizhulian. Guizhulian looked dazed and pitiful. Her tears were still flowing. Xiao Jin said, "It's okay." Guizhulian reacted and trembled again. She nervously pointed at the place where Hao Jiuzong had put the things. "I can't hear or see anything. The array has blocked it." If Xiao Jin couldn't even do this, he wouldn't have refused to leave. "But this place isn't safe anymore. You really need to move. I'll get Mo Jiang to buy a new house." Based on the current situation, only she and Mo Jiang could afford to buy a house. And they were all paid for by the spirit group. Guizhulian nodded, a little scared. "I didn't expect them to find this place so quickly. Zhong Jian can still use the array formation. You left a lot of things in the Gua family. It's easy for her to use these things to find you, but this is the only time." Looking around the small house, she said, "I've caused a lot of trouble for Meng Qingyu and the others. It's better to buy a new house." It was specifically used to hide people, and it had to have enough space to live in. Guizhulian was so scared now. Of course, she would listen to whatever Xiao Jin said. She didn't have any money on her, so she was a little embarrassed. She gradually stopped crying and said, "Did I implicate you? If I thought you implicated me, would I save you?" The girl seemed a little amused. She lowered her head and looked at her. "It's over soon. But I want to ask you, do you want to appear openly or hide for the rest of your life?" Guizhulian opened her eyes. "Do I have a choice?" Chapter 951. Of course, she wanted to appear in public. Xiao Jin nodded. "I can find someone to settle Zhong Jian's matter. This way, your sister and mother won't have anyone to rely on. But if you want to live in public, you have to be firm in your heart. After all, I can't help you kill them. You definitely don't want to do that. In the future, when they know where you are, they will definitely come to make trouble for you. As long as you insist on not going back, I can guarantee you that they won't be able to take you away." Speaking of this, she smiled. "I know you like Hao Jiuzong. Don't follow him back when he comes to persuade you." Guizhulian shook her head fiercely. "No. If she went back, she would die. She would have to endlessly donate blood and bone marrow to her sister. She was so scared, so terrified. If she could be persuaded to go back so easily, she wouldn't have thought of escaping." "Okay, that's what you said." Xiao Jin got her promise and said, "I'll take you to Mo Jiang first." Mo Jiang was now filming. She wanted to discuss the matter of buying a house with Mo Jiang. She now had nearly 20 million yuan in her hands. After all, she had helped the spirit group twice. Although she took the array points the first time, the spirit group still gave her money. She probably had a few million yuan left from Mo Jiang's 10 million yuan. It was more than enough to buy any house she wanted, as long as Mo Jiang didn't buy a villa. Xiao Jin picked up his phone and called Zhong Li Peining. Array masters should have their own rules. Zhong Jian used her ability to take private jobs and set up a life-linking array for others. This shouldn't be allowed, right? Life-linking array? Zhong Li Peining was a little surprised. Obviously, she knew what a life-linking array was. She immediately said, "It's not allowed. The spirit group is not allowed to interfere in the affairs of ordinary people, not even to help." Zhong Jian is the leader of the spirit group in Xiangdu. She did such a thing? Xiao Jin said, "Yes." After all, Zhong Li Peining knew about the existence of array masters. She knew more than he Yao. Zhong Li Peining said, I will report to the organization. I know that she is now in the capital. The news will come out in the afternoon. We will control her first. Zhong Li Peining was also a worry-free person, and soon she understood Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin replied with an okay and hung up the phone. She didn't dare to ask any other things. Xiao Jin. And, 2. Meng Qingyu's place has been discovered. She can't stay there anymore. We can buy a new house. Xiao Jin said straightforwardly, I don't know much about the housing prices in the capital, and I don't live there. I will take your advice. Where do you want to buy? I have 20 million here. If it is not enough, you can make up for it. Mo Jiang. When it came to the house, she became excited. 20 million is not enough. I want a suburban villa. The minimum price is 300 million, and that is not including the additional decoration. Xiao Jin, be realistic. Are you famous now? Xiao Jin only had 20 million. It was impossible for her to borrow money from the Mu family or Song Yanqing. Mo Jiang clicked his tongue. Let me ask my agent. 20 million is a lot. You can buy a high-rise apartment in a good location, but I think it is still too small. Chapter 952. Ever since this woman came to this world, she had always wanted the best in everything. Now that the conditions didn't allow it, Xiao Jin didn't doubt her ability to squander money. Xiao Jin said, when you become famous, I won't care if you want to buy a house as big as a football field. Mo Jiang said, She found her manager and asked him to check it out. Buy a house. The manager was a little surprised. He thought for a while and said, 25 million yuan is not a small budget, but if you're in a hurry, you can forget about buying a new building. But I remember that Olive Garden sells second-hand houses. The budget for 200 square meters is only 20 million yuan, and it will cost more than that. Only 200 square meters? Mo Jiang frowned. It's too small. Xiao Jin, the manager sighed. Ancestor, you have to know that although 20 million yuan is a lot, it's still not enough for a house in a good area. If you want to buy a big house, you'll need at least 40 to 50 million yuan. Including the renovation, a 300 square meter house in a good area will cost at least 50 million yuan. Xiao Jin. She remembered that she earned 10,000 yuan a day from fortune telling. 300,000 yuan a month. More than 3 million a year. This house, fortunately, she didn't need to buy a house. Mo Jiang looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin shook his head in silence. She only had 20 million yuan, and she didn't have any more. Mo Jiang clicked his tongue. It seems that we can only borrow from the gods' team. Xiao Jin, if Mo Jiang could ask for it, she wouldn't care. She didn't want to live in a small house, so she had to think of something herself. Guizhulian was a little surprised that they were still in the mood to talk about houses. She was very afraid now. There were many people in the crew. But after what happened just now, she trusted Xiao Jin a little more. At least in the morning, Hao Jiozong didn't see her in front of her. She knew that Xiao Jin wasn't normal and didn't belong to the category of normal people. But it didn't matter. She had been locked up in the Gua family for too long. She didn't care if this world was normal or not. She just needed to escape. Of course, Xiao Jin and Guizhulian stayed on set to arrange for the house to be bought. He didn't expect Mo Jiang to be so generous. In the afternoon, the spirit group sent someone over to give them a bunch of keys. The spirit group owned a property in Olive Garden, so they directly assigned it to Mo Jiang. The renovated 400 square meters was not the villa she had imagined, but at least it was enough for her to live in. As for why the soul group was so rich, what a joke. Did the astral group need a reason to be rich? As long as an array master entered the spirit group, they would have a high net worth. Not to mention, the spirit group was backed by various large families. Money was just a small number to them. Knowing that Mo Jiang wanted a house, he gave it to him without hesitation. When Mo Jiang received the key in the afternoon, he nodded. It seems that the treatment for entering the spirit group is pretty good. Xiao Jin. If other people didn't want to appease Mo Jiang, who was a ticking time bomb, they wouldn't have been able to get a property worth hundreds of millions for no reason. Of course, she didn't care about this. In the afternoon, Mo Jiang didn't have any scenes to shoot, so he took them directly to the new house. Someone even asked Mo Jiang if he needed anything. Meng Qingyu's house was obviously unlivable. Qiao Jin sent a message to Meng Qingyu, asking her to sell the house and move directly to Mo Jiang's place. After all, that place was already considered exposed and it was too remote. It was safer to live here. Meng Qingyu also said to Qiao Jin, "Someone came to see me in the afternoon." Chapter 953. The ones looking for her were naturally Hao Jiuzong's group. Of course, they would find out who owned the house that Qiao Jin and Guizhulian lived in. It was natural for them to ask Meng Qingyu. Meng Qingyu knew that it was probably Qiao Jin who brought her here. Of course, she said that she didn't know anything. She had been in school for the past few days, and she was a member of the spirit group. She had someone to take care of the follow-up matters. Of course, she wasn't afraid of Hao Jiuzong's people. She left Guizhulian here. Of course, she hired a nanny to take care of them in such a big house. After making the arrangements, Qiao Jin went home. After arriving home, He Yao's side moved quickly. Guizhulian's fake information was also arranged, and she temporarily gave her the name He Julian. Because He Yao didn't know what to change the fake information to, she just changed it according to her surname. On Cheng Yujun's side, Zhong Jiayin was suddenly taken away by the spirit group for investigation. Hao Jiuzong didn't come up empty-handed. He could find out where Guizhulian was through Zhong Jiayin, so he naturally found some information. It was a surveillance video that showed Qiao Jin and Guizhulian. Qiao Jin could hide all the information, but there was no need to. Guizhulian would eventually appear, and even if they found out that Qiao Jin was involved, it would be useless. As long as Guizhulian wasn't with her, the Gu family had no reason to ask Qiao Jin to hand her over. When they returned home, Song Yanqing sent a message to Qiao Jin to inform him. Hao Jiuzong found out that Qiao Jin and Guizhulian were together. He went directly to the Mu family to ask for her. Of course, the Mu family didn't know. Song Yanqing found an excuse to calm Hao Jiuzong down and went to the Mu family with him. As soon as Qiao Jin arrived home, he saw Hao Jiuzong and Song Yanqing sitting in the living room. The two of them sat side by side on the sofa. The difference was that Song Yanqing was still a noble young master. When he talked to Qiao Fei, he was gentle and elegant, with a soft breath like the spring breeze. Next to him, Hao Jiuzong had a sullen face and looked gloomy. He was not in the mood to talk to the Mu family. Qiao Jin is back. You can ask her if you have any questions. Qiao Fei saw that Qiao Jin had returned. Perhaps he knew that Qiao Jin was no longer an ordinary person, so he spoke more decisively. Of course, this was directed at Hao Jiuzong. Hao Jiuzong immediately turned his head and looked at Qiao Jin with his sharp eyes. Qiao Jin walked in naturally. She was not surprised to see Hao Jiuzong. She said lightly, "Is there a guest in the house?" Qiao Fei stood up. "This is the young master of the Hao family. He said that he wants to see you." In fact, Qiao Fei didn't know the Hao family, but Mu Xiangshan knew who he was. He was not surprised to see him. He greeted him and went upstairs first, leaving Qiao Fei to deal with them. The other members of the Mu family hadn't come back yet. Those who had tuition were in the company. Qiao Jin was the most idle. "Miss Qiao." Hao Jiuzong had something on his mind. At this moment, when he saw Qiao Jin, he looked a little impatient. He stood up, fixed his eyes on Qiao Jin, and asked in a low voice, "My sudden visit is very sudden for you. But just yesterday, my fiancé's sister went missing in her house. We found that she was in the same car as you when she went missing. I wonder if Miss Qiao knows her whereabouts?" He didn't directly say whether she was taken away by Qiao Fei or not. After all, Hao Jiuzong knew Guizhulian's character very well. She was timid and weak. She would never dare to go without someone to lead her. Chapter 954. Miss Gua? Qiao Jin seemed to be surprised. "Yes, I've seen her." She and Song Yanqing looked at each other. Song Yanqing just smiled gently, as if he didn't worry that Xiao Jin couldn't find an excuse. It was very late last night. I saw Miss Guo by chance, so I sat in the same car with her. However, she said that she had something to do. Not long after we got off the car, we separated. I have my own private schedule. As for where Miss Guo went, I'm not too sure. She looked at Hao Jiuzong and seemed to be confused. Is Miss Guo missing? Hao Jiuzong stared at her closely. Xiao Jin's expression was so natural that he couldn't tell whether Xiao Jin was lying or not. If she was lying, there was no trace at all. But if she was not lying, Hao Jiuzong didn't believe it. Hao Jiuzong continued to ask, didn't she tell you where she was going? Xiao Jin said, I saw that Miss Guo was not in a good mood. I know that others have secrets, so I didn't ask more. Mr. Hao, why are you in such a hurry to find Miss Guo? I heard that her sister was hospitalized. Why so suddenly? There was some pity in her tone. Song Yanqing suddenly felt that Xiao Jin's acting was not bad. However, even if she tried to cover it up a little, there was no trace of it. She still had that indifferent look on her face, as if she was just talking about something natural. Hao Jiuzong narrowed his eyes slightly. Miss Qiao really doesn't know anything? Mr. Hao, are you asking me now? Xiao Jin's tone gradually became cold. The Guo family's people are missing. What's the use of looking for me? I just saw Miss Guo. What does her disappearance have to do with me? Besides, Guo Julian was not missing. At least she knew where she was. How could she be missing? Jiuzong, you're too impatient. Song Yanqing spoke up at the right time, his tone neither hurried nor slow. Miss Guo's disappearance was clearly planned. It's not an accident that she could leave the Guo family. Why don't you investigate who's working with her? Besides, Guo Julian is Guo Zhui's younger sister. Her disappearance is probably because the Guo family is worried. You've gone overboard. Hao Jiuzong paused. He also knew that he had gone too far. What was more contradictory was that he didn't want to find Guo Julian and save Guo Zhui, who was in pain in the hospital at the moment. Because the doctor said that Guo Zhui's illness didn't seem to be a relapse, it was just a recurrence of the previous pain. Her body was actually fine. However, it was still difficult for the doctor to explain such a strange thing. He could only say that Guo Zhui would be in pain for a while, and the specific reason would need to be examined further. Now, Hao Jiuzong was worried that Guo Julian would be bullied or suffer outside. She had lived like a princess in the Guo family for so many years. Would she be able to live a good life outside? Hao Jiuzong didn't know. Xiao Jin knew that Hao Jiuzong was still holding back his questions. Mo Jiang lived in Meng Qingyu's house. Since Guo Julian was there, it was no secret that Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang knew each other. After all, Xiao Jin had been to the cruise several times. Hao Jiuzong definitely knew that this matter had something to do with Xiao Jin. The problem was that he didn't find Guo Julian at Meng Qingyu's house today. Without direct evidence, he couldn't question Xiao Jin face to face. Hao Jiuzong's heart trembled when he heard Song Yanqing's words. He wasn't stupid. He just found out that Song Yanqing was Xiao Jin's boyfriend, so he now suspected Song Yanqing. However, this was even more ridiculous than suspecting Xiao Jin, so he held back for the time being. Chapter 955. Xiao Fei listened quietly at the side. He probably knew that Miss Guo had gone missing. But what did her daughter have to do with her disappearance? However, Xiao Fei wasn't completely confused. She remembered that Xiao Jin was still doing fortune-telling outside. She also knew that Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin had visited the Guo family 2 days ago. It wasn't appropriate for her to say anything now. Everything that was involved in this felt like a TV series. In that case, I misunderstood Miss Qiao. Hao Jiuzong was a straightforward person. He didn't ask since he didn't have any evidence. He explained to Xiao Jin that he was just worried about Guo Julian and left. Song Yanqing wanted to send him back, so he left with him. When he left, he squeezed Xiao Jin's palm. His thin lips moved slightly. When Hao Jiuzong couldn't see him, he said, he has no evidence. Hao Jiuzong wouldn't act rashly without evidence. Besides, Xiao Jin didn't hide the video on purpose. Xiao Jin waved at him and smiled, bye-bye. Song Yanqing nodded. He turned to say goodbye to Xiao Fei and left with Hao Jiuzong. After they left, Xiao Fei couldn't help but ask, why did Hao Jiuzong say that you had something to do with Miss Guo's disappearance? How did he find you? Xiao Jin looked at Xiao Fei. He didn't hide it and said with a smile, because I did have her. He found some evidence, but he couldn't verify it. Naturally, he suspected me. Xiao Fei was confused. Didn't you say that you were doing fortune-telling outside? Why did you kidnap her? How is this kidnapping? Xiao Jin laughed and shook his head. Guo Julian wanted to go with me. She might die if she returned to the Guo family. You probably don't know the reason, but she is one of Guo Zicheng's illegitimate daughters. Her older sister Guo Zhui is also one of them. It's just that her older sister Guo Zhui has been unwell since she was young. Guo Julian is her bone marrow donor. This time, Guo Julian took advantage of the chaos caused by her grandfather's accident to escape. You probably haven't heard of Guo Julian in the Guo family before, right? She has been locked up in the Guo family since she was young and rarely appears in front of others, so many people don't know about her. After Xiao Jin finished speaking, he added, Hao Jiuzhong is Guo Zhui's fiancé. Xiao Fei was shocked when she heard it. She couldn't help but say, what a familiar plot. There seemed to be a similar plot in the TV series she had watched before. She's in your hands now. Why are you helping her? Xiao Fei was not cruel. He was just curious. Since when did Guo Julian have such a good relationship with you? You knew her before? Of course I have a reason to help her. But you have to keep it a secret. You can't tell anyone. Xiao Fei, of course I won't tell anyone. Mom isn't stupid. If she told anyone, wouldn't she cause trouble for Xiao Jin? However, the more she looked at him, the more complicated her gaze became. Why did you get involved in such a thing all of a sudden? She didn't think that he was a fortune-teller. Looking at Xiao Jin, he seemed like the kind of person who specialized in helping people solve melodramatic matters. Xiao Jin smiled and said, I'm telling you because there's no need to hide it from you. You can just focus on your own things. Watching your TV series and playing mahjong. Xiao Fei only needed to happily go shopping with her friends and go to the spa. Of course, she didn't need to get involved in these matters. I'm not busy, she suddenly said. Guanqing came just now. His sister's relationship with Qiji is known in their family. Chapter 956. They said that since we're already close, we should find some time to officially meet each other. Do you think it's better for us to go to the Song family or let the Song family come over? Xiao Fei was still troubled by this matter, but she didn't expect Song Yanqing to be so decisive. So soon, Song Suyu had told his parents about him. Qiji didn't say that the two of them were just trying to date. Xiao Fei felt that there was no need to alarm her parents now, right? She didn't even want to meet Song Suyu. The main reason was that the eldest daughter of the Song family had a special status. If they were to break up now, it would be awkward for them to meet in the future. Since he said so, it's up to you guys to decide. Xiao Jin didn't want to worry about this. You guys can decide. I'm fine with it. It's fine, it's fine. At least it's about you. Xiao Fei rebuked him. You don't care now. Are you going to be fine when you get married? When I was talking to Yanqing today, Xiao Fei was stuck. It was mainly because Song Yanqing's words were profound. As a mother, the topic of conversation with her future son-in-law definitely couldn't be separated from Xiao Jin, so she indirectly asked Song Yanqing about his thoughts on marriage. In the end, Song Yanqing smiled meaningfully and said a few specious words, meaning that they would wait until Xiao Jin graduated. Would they get married after graduation? Or would they talk about these things officially after graduation? Xiao Fei was worried that Xiao Jin would get married too early, but she was also worried about other things. After all, as a mother, she was definitely worried about her daughter's top priority. What did you talk about? Xiao Jin wasn't too curious and just took the opportunity to ask. Xiao Fei said, you'll be 21 after the new year, and you'll be 22 after graduation next year. What do you think? Do you have any plans for the future? Or do you want to marry Song Yanqing? Xiao Jin looked at her strangely. It's too early to talk about these things. She and Song Yanqing were still in the dating stage. She hadn't even fully recovered her memories, so it was too early for her to get married. Xiao Fei was also a little puzzled. Don't you all want to get married when you're dating? In the past, when she dated Mu Jinming, her heart was filled with pink bubbles. The sweetness of love was that she couldn't wait to marry Mu Jinming immediately. In the end, he was hit in the head and remained calm for 20 years. Get married? Xiao Jin said bluntly, I've never thought about it. Xiao Fei gasped in shock. Jin, you can't be a scumbag. We can't afford to offend Lord Song. Xiao Jin, she was a little amused. I just said that I've never thought about getting married. Am I a scumbag? Xiao Fei said, when I told Lord Song about it, he didn't say that he didn't want to get married. Haven't you thought about it? Why aren't you embarrassed at all when you're in a relationship? Let me tell you, your career is your career. Don't mess around outside. Xiao Jin. Looking at Xiao Jin's expression, Xiao Fei probably felt that she was thinking too much. She smiled awkwardly and said, Mom is just, she watched too many dramas every day when she had nothing to do. It was inevitable that she would overthink things. The moment Xiao Jin said that she didn't want to get married, Xiao Fei already felt that Xiao Jin was looking for an opportunity to kick Song Yanqing out. If Xiao Jin were to really do that, her daughter would be too crazy. While they were talking, Mu Qiji came back first. When he saw Xiao Jin, he nodded and said to them, I heard that an unexpected guest came to the house today. Chapter 957. It was probably strange for Hao Jiuzong to come to the Mu family. After all, they had nothing to do with the Hao family. The Hao family's base was in Shanghai. If they came to the capital, they would only interact with the Song family. Of course, it was strange for them to come to the Mu family. Yes, the young master of the Hao family is here. Xiao Fei answered the question. He's here to ask Xiao Jin something. Looking for Xiao Jin? Mu Qiji looked at Xiao Jin. Now, when he saw her, he could think of the methods Xiao Jin had used. Mu Qiji, he sighed in his heart and stopped asking. Xiao Fei was a little surprised. Son, don't you care about your sister? What if she did something bad outside? Mu Qiji, Xiao Jin, Xiao Fei was really a wonderful person. Mu Qiji was wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase with a notebook in his hand. When he walked over and sat down to open the notebook, Xiao Fei told Mu Qiji what Song Yanqing had said. Mu Qiji nodded and said, Suyu has already told me. They will discuss this matter. Suyu said that Xiao Jin went to their house last time. This time they will come over. It's just that the time has to be arranged. It will take some time. After all, the Song family was very busy. They wanted to gather Song Yanqing, Song Suyu, and their father together. They didn't have much free time. The Mu family had also arranged for a common time. It could be seen that Mu Jinming was often not at home. The business world was still very busy. The Mu family was fine. At least now there was Mu Qiji to share the burden. Xiao Jin and Muzilian, the two unreliable people, couldn't be saved at all. One had no ambition, while the other was simply useless. Xiao Fei nodded. That's good. I also have some time to prepare. Your father is also very busy during this period of time. If you really can't do it, we can do it during the last few days of the new year. No matter what, everyone has time. Xiao Fei's suggestion made Mu Qiji ponder. All right, I'll let Suyu know when the time comes. Xiao Fei nodded with satisfaction. So, when are you getting married? Mu Qiji, he sighed helplessly. Mom, what are you thinking about? Xiao Fei pointed at Xiao Jin and said, Forget about your sister. After all, she's not even 21 yet. Look at how old you are. It wasn't easy for you to get a girlfriend. Don't you want me to ask? Our family is counting on you now. My son is as old as you. A rich wife like you would have grandchildren long ago. I'm the only one who has a hard life. I'm already so old, but I still chase your younger brother with a feather duster every day. Xiao Jin, I think your body is still okay. Why don't you and Jinming have another child? Xiao Fei, Mu Qiji couldn't help but let out a pft. It was rare for him to break his eldest brother's calmness. Go back to your room. Xiao Fei rarely showed her mother's authority. She spat at Xiao Jin. Girls talk nonsense all day long. Study hard. If you can't get first place in the next exam, then Xiao Fei seemed to be stuck for a long time. Xiao Jin didn't need pocket money and could earn it himself. If the tactic of deducting his pocket money didn't work, then nothing else would work. Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Then what? Deduct my pocket money like you did to Qi Lian?" "Xiao Fei, I'll unilaterally cut off our mother-daughter relationship for one day. You have to call me big sister." Xiao Jin, Mu Qiji, Xiao Fei was really a wonderful person. Chapter 958. When Xiao Jin returned to the room, Song Yanqing sent a message to Xiao Jin. The content of his message was, "How Jiuzong should have noticed that I was patronizing him. After all, they were in the capital, and Hao Jiuzong was the successor of the Hao family in Shanghai. He was not really stupid. The fact that Xiao Jin was Song Yanqing's girlfriend revealed a problem. If Xiao Jin was Song Yanqing's girlfriend and Xiao Jin had something to do with Guizhulian, Song Yanqing would not tell Hao Jiuzong if he found out anything. Therefore, after returning to the Song family, Hao Jiuzong left. He probably wanted to find Guizhulian himself. When Xiao Jin saw the message, he just laughed. Hao Jiuzong was quite vigilant. Unfortunately, his method was not very clear. On the surface, Guizhui was his fiancée. Now his fiancée was in the hospital, and he wanted to find his sister. Of course, if he knew, he could say that he brought Guizhulian back for Guizhui. Then there was nothing to say. But Xiao Jin felt that it was not that simple. Just like what Xiao Fei had said, there was a melodramatic rhythm involved. Xiao Jin certainly did not care. Since Guizhulian said that she did not want to go back, and she was responsible for the array point, Xiao Jin would not let anything happen to her casually. Now that she was staying with Mo Jiang, it was good to have someone watching over her. Moreover, with the fake identity information, even if she appeared in front of the Guo family, it would be fine. Zhongjin was controlled, and the Guo family had no reason to bring Guizhulian back directly. But late at night, the Guo family sent a message that Guizhieshir suddenly passed away. It was indeed sudden. Mu Xiangshan woke up in the middle of the night. He didn't call anyone but Xiao Jin to accompany him to the Guo residence. He did not say anything superfluous, but just sighed, "Guizhieshir is dead." No one expected that Guizhieshir would pass away at night after being picked up from the police station. Xiao Jin said, "The poison in his body doesn't seem to be able to kill him instantly. He was poisoned with a slow-acting poison, which could at least drag on for a year or two. Even though it would be an incredible miracle for him to last 1 or 2 years with this body of his." Mu Xiangshan shook his head. Wu Zicheng personally made the call. The news has already been announced. Obviously, if it was Gu Zicheng who did it, he was not afraid of others knowing. After all, Guizhieshir was already old. If he said that he died of old age, no one would have the qualifications to investigate this matter. Even if Guizhieshir had passed away in an accident, or if he had been killed first, there was no way to know. Mu Xiangshan was Guizhieshir's old friend. It was natural for Gu Zicheng to inform him. Xiao Jin nodded and didn't say anything. He put on a coat and set off with Mu Xiangshan. It was quite cold in the middle of the night, so the driver got up at the last minute to send Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin to the Guo family. The road was very quiet and there was no one around. When they arrived at the courtyard of the Guo family's villa, the villa had already been laid out with funeral facilities, even a wreath had been arranged. There was no morning music, probably afraid of disturbing the people. It was the middle of the night, and there were not many people who came to pay their respects. Mu Xiangshan was the first to arrive, so the Guo family's mansion always had a gloomy atmosphere in the night. Xiao Jin accompanied Mu Xiangshan into the Guo family's courtyard. Gu Zicheng, with a white cloth over his head, came out to receive him. They used the traditional funeral ceremony of Guizhieshir's hometown. The descendants needed to wear mourning clothes. Every time a guest came, Gu Zicheng would kneel down and kowtow to the guest. Gu Zicheng was handsome and well-maintained. At this time, there was no sadness on his face. He kowtowed to Mu Xiangshan. Chapter 959. Mu Xiangshan sighed and helped him up. "My condolences." Guo Zicheng nodded as he stood up. He wore glasses and his face was calm. He said softly, "Thank you, Uncle Mu." He glanced at Xiao Jin again, but he didn't pay much attention to him and quickly looked away. "Uncle Mu, please forgive me for calling you in the middle of the night." "No need to say this." Mu Xiangshan waved his hand. "Who would have thought of this? I'll go and burn the incense." Guo Zicheng nodded and fell silent. He led Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin in. In the hall, Guo Jieshi's photo was hung in the center. His photo must have been taken early in the morning. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, but the black and white photo looked a little creepy. In front of the photo was a coffin, which was not closed yet. Guo Jieshi was lying inside in a shroud. He still looked energetic, but now that he was dead, he could only lie inside with his eyes closed forever. Two people knelt in front of the coffin. Guo Zicheng's current wife, Qing Yujun, and Guo Shuoyu, Guo Zicheng's daughter, who was not her biological daughter. Guo Zhui was now in the hospital, and Guo Julian was not. Other than Guo Zicheng's son and daughter, there should be a grandson, but they were all gone. Mu Xiangshan looked at Guo Jieshi's photo and sighed slightly. He still remembered that day when he came. He joked that if Guo Jieshi suddenly died one day, he wouldn't be able to see him for the last time. He didn't expect it to be true. In just 2 or 3 days, no one knew that something like this would happen. He burned 3 incense sticks for Guo Jieshi, and Xiao Jin also did the same. After burning the incense, Guo Zicheng said to Mu Xiangshan, "Uncle Mu, it's too late now. You and Xiao Jin should go back first. It's not too late to come tomorrow morning." "It's okay. I'll sit here for a while and accompany Jieshi on his last journey." Mu Xiangshan shook his head and finally asked, "How did Jieshi leave?" Guo Zicheng smiled bitterly. "Something was wrong when he came back from the police station. He had a big fight with me. I guess he was too ashamed to see me. He was so angry that when the servant called him for dinner, he couldn't wake up. When I looked, he was gone." Mu Xiangshan only nodded. Guo Jieshi was already dead. Of course, Guo Zicheng could say whatever he wanted. Even if someone had doubts, they wouldn't have the qualifications to investigate. Moreover, Mu Xiangshan didn't really care how Guo Jieshi died. Sooner or later, he would have had such a day if he hadn't found out that he had hired someone to kill his first wife. Guo Zicheng didn't stop Mu Xiangshan after he finished speaking and let him sit at home. It was the middle of the night, and he had informed many people. Naturally, there would be others who would come to offer their condolences. Mu Xiangshan found a place to sit down. He didn't mind being creepy. It was late at night. Although the villa was brightly lit, it was exceptionally quiet. Xiao Jin stood at the side. Guo Shuoyu, who was kneeling on the other side, secretly looked up at Xiao Jin. Actually, she had a creepy feeling in her heart. It was mainly because she saw her grandfather's body after he died. Her grandfather clearly died with his eyes open. He lay on the bed with his eyes wide open. Later, she didn't know what her father did, but he closed his eyes. But Guo Shuoyu couldn't forget how he looked before he died. She shouldn't be afraid in front of so many people. But now, kneeling in front of the morning hall with the coffin lid open, she had an indescribable creepy feeling. Chapter 960. When she looked up at Xiao Jin, she found that Xiao Jin was very calm at this moment. She had come with her grandfather. Standing at the side, wrapped in a black coat, she looked like she was attending a funeral. Her face was calm and her eyes were clear and bright. When she met Guo Shuoyu's eyes, she lowered her eyes slightly and glanced over. Her face, which always had a fairy-like aura, didn't seem to show much emotion. She wasn't afraid at all? Guo Shuoyu immediately retracted her gaze. It was also at this moment that she suddenly heard a sound. It was a very soft sound, as if it came from the coffin. Guo Shuoyu's face turned pale for a moment. She was very close. She didn't know if she was hallucinating, but the hall was very quiet. That was why she heard it. She subconsciously looked at her stepmother next to her. "Mom, did you hear that?" Although she wasn't her biological mother, Guo Shuoyu was raised by Qing Yujun, so it was understandable that she called her mom. Qing Yujun pretended to be sad, but in fact, she was thinking about her daughter lying in the hospital. At this moment, she was a little absent-minded. When she heard Guoshuoyu's words, she subconsciously looked up. What? Guoshuoyu froze. Didn't you hear it? I just heard a little sound, like, from the coffin. Cheng Yujun glanced at her and said, You're hallucinating. How is that possible? The point was that Guoshuoyu was kneeling in front of the morning hall in the middle of the night. Wasn't it creepy? Guoshuoyu also suspected that she was hallucinating. At this moment, there were only a few of them in the hall. She subconsciously looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan still didn't move. In fact, Xiao Jin also heard it just now. She was standing, so she had a better view. She had clearly seen the old man in the coffin move. It was a very soft movement. If she wasn't sharp, she wouldn't have noticed it. At that time, she narrowed her eyes for a moment. She wasn't afraid, but she moved closer to Mu Xiangshan. Guojiesher's body was strange. Bang! There was another sound. This time, not only Guoshuoyu but also Cheng Yujun heard it. Their faces turned pale at the same time. Mu Xiangshan also noticed it. He subconsciously looked inside the coffin with a grave expression. Now that Guozicheng was receiving guests outside, there were only a few of them in the hall. Cheng Yujun was so frightened that she instinctively crawled back and turned to look at Mu Xiangshan. Did you hear anything? Mu Xiangshan, no. Cheng Yujun. Guoshuoyu hurriedly stepped forward and grabbed Cheng Yujun. I heard it. She stared at the inside of the coffin. She was sure that the sound came from inside the coffin. The two of them felt their blood run cold. They stood up with their scalps tingling. They didn't expect that the person lying in the coffin would open his eyes again. That pair of turbid and lifeless eyes had already opened once more, and they were staring intently at the ceiling above his head. Just like what Guoshuoyu had seen before, he had died with his eyes wide open. This time, Guoshuoyu couldn't hold back and screamed, Ah! This scene alone was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Her scream frightened everyone. Cheng Yujun took a look and screamed as well. All of a sudden, the people outside heard it. Chapter 961. Their screams were enough to make one's scalp tingle. Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan also saw it. Compared to their fear, one of them was shocked, while the other raised her chin and looked inside curiously. Of course, the scream also attracted Guozicheng's attention. His expression was a little ugly. There were no other guests at the moment, so he came in with a sullen face. Why are you shouting? Cheng Yujun rushed to him, tears coming out of her eyes. Honey, Dad, she was so frightened that she couldn't say anything for a while. Guoshuoyu was much more decisive. She cried to Guozicheng, Dad, Grandpa opened his eyes again. Guozicheng was a little shocked. His shock didn't seem fake, and he didn't seem to be afraid. She immediately ran to the coffin and saw Guojiesher with his eyes open. The pair of eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. There was no movement. It looked like a corpse that was already dead, but its eyes were still open. Seeing Guojiesher open his eyes again, Guozicheng's expression was quite ugly. Of course, Mu Xiangshan couldn't keep silent. He immediately asked, Zicheng, what's going on? Guozicheng turned his head and looked at Mu Xiangshan. He smiled and said, It's nothing. It's probably just a conditioned reflex. Uncle Mu, don't worry. There's nothing strange in this world. As he spoke, he walked to the coffin and reached out to wipe Guojiesher's eyes. Guoshuoyu and Cheng Yujun were scared out of their wits. They never expected Guozicheng to be so bold as to touch Guojiesher after encountering such a strange thing. Xiao Jin pondered for a moment. Mr. Guo, I advise you to think twice. Before he could finish his sentence, Guozicheng, who was about to wipe Guojiesher's eyes, suddenly raised his hand and grabbed Guozicheng's wrist the moment his hand touched Guojiesher's eyes. This sudden turn of events had clearly frightened Guozicheng. His face was a little shocked. Guoshuoyu and Cheng Yujun became a pair of screaming chickens. Their screams seemed to break through the roof. In the end, it was the final destination of human beings. They were so scared that they fainted. Xiao Jin. As for the Guojiesher in the coffin, the strength that he used to grab Guozicheng seemed to be incomparably great. It was clearly not the strength that an old man should have. Guizicheng was also frightened and subconsciously wanted to shake off Guiziesher's hand. That pair of hands was like the bark of an old tree. At this moment, there were greenish-gray marks all over them. They held onto Guizicheng tightly. No matter how Guizicheng tried to shake them off, he couldn't. Even the servants in the villa saw this scene. The timid ones immediately fainted from fright. Some of the more courageous ones gathered around and called out anxiously, "Sir." Mu Xiangshan was also shocked. "What's going on?" Xiao Jin whispered, "He's being controlled." It was impossible for Guiziesher's corpse to have come back to life, but Guiziesher's corpse was being controlled. This kind of control was not controlled by a spell formation, but by a sorcerer. However, this sorcerer was hiding in the dark and had yet to show himself. Xiao Jin had seen Guiziesher before. He had felt like he was being watched when he was alive. He didn't expect that Guiziesher would suddenly come back to life after he died. Mu Xiangshan looked at her. "Who is it?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "I don't know yet." At this moment, Guizicheng was still struggling. Guiziesher in the coffin grabbed Guizicheng with one hand and suddenly got up. Chapter 962. His body looked stiff, and when he got up, he grabbed Guizicheng by the wrist. When he sat up, his waist seemed to have turned 90 degrees, and his legs were not in the same direction. He looked like a puppet that was being controlled. Although the joints of his body were connected, they could be controlled separately. There was no emotion in his turbid eyes. They were empty and looked particularly frightening. Mu Xiangshan was also a little surprised, and subconsciously took 2 steps back. Xiao Jin stood in front of him and looked at Guizicheng. He did not move for the time being. Guizicheng was also shocked when he saw Guiziesher climb out of the coffin. However, ordinary people would have fainted like Guishuoyu and Qing Yujun when faced with such a situation. Guizicheng could see that he was panicking, but he still called out, "Dad?" It was as if he was just wondering why Guiziesher suddenly got up. Of course, Guiziesher would not answer him at this time. Xiao Jin knew very well that Guiziesher was already dead. When he came, he did not have any aura. Now, Guiziesher was not a living person. He was being controlled, and the strength of his grip on Guizicheng increased. Guizicheng felt a sharp pain on his wrist. Just then Guiziesher, who got up, suddenly opened his mouth and let out a howl. He looked very much like a legendary zombie, and bit Guizicheng's neck. Guizicheng's heart trembled for a moment. At that moment, there was a bang, and Guiziesher's body seemed to be pushed by someone. There was a crack, and the sound of something breaking. His neck tilted and he was pushed away. He smashed into the side of the coffin, and did not bite Guizicheng. The grip on Guizicheng's wrist also loosened. Guizicheng was a little shocked, because he did not see anyone move. Moreover, in the morning hall, Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin were just a little shocked. This situation should have been enough to make people faint, but Guizicheng saw that Xiao Jin did not react. He immediately looked at Xiao Jin. Considering the current situation, his behavior was really too strange. Guiziesher was pushed away by an unknown force. He howled and wanted to continue biting Guizicheng. Now that he was pushed, his whole body was pressed into the coffin. It was as if there was a powerful force suppressing him. He lay in the coffin, but he could no longer get up. His empty face only had his mouth open, and he was still howling. It was really too terrifying. Guizicheng hurriedly got up and looked at Guiziesher in the coffin. He was a little scared, but not too scared. A few seconds later, the struggling Guiziesher slowly closed his eyes and stopped moving his mouth. Gradually, he stopped moving and turned back into a corpse. Xiao Jin retracted his slightly moving fingertips. It wasn't an accident that Guiziesher had been controlled by someone, but it couldn't be maintained for too long. Now that the power had disappeared, Guiziesher was completely lifeless. He was just a corpse. The members of the Gui family were dumbfounded when they saw this horrifying scene. The servants of the Gui family were scared out of their wits, and a few who were barely conscious rushed over to help Guizicheng. Guizicheng was also trembling. In the chaos, someone asked, "Sir, should we call the police?" No, Guizicheng subconsciously wanted to refuse, but he looked at Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan in the distance, paused, and then said, "Call the police." After saying this, his face was slightly pale, but he quickly calmed down. "Close the coffin." Chapter 963. In that situation just now, as long as one was awake, they knew that something was wrong. Which dead person could come back to life? If Gujiesher wasn't dead, the way he got up was too similar to the legendary zombie. He couldn't tell anything apart and wanted to bite Guizicheng, who knew that he would be quickly pressed down again. This preposterous and horrifying scene had indeed happened. Gujiesher's family servant called the police, and the rest took the unconscious Gu Shuoyu and Qing Yujun to the side to rest. Guizicheng stepped forward and said to Mu Xiangshan, "Uncle Mu, I'm sorry, something unexpected happened. You call this an accident?" Even though Mu Xiangshan was experienced and knowledgeable, he still felt that Guizicheng's statement was ridiculous. Why don't you ask a master to take a look? What if his father came back to life again? Guizicheng, he was silent for a moment and said, "Uncle Mu, I don't know what's going on either. Do you want me to believe that my father really came back to life or became a ghost?" Mu Xiangshan's sharp eyes saw the scratches on Guizicheng's wrist. Just now, Gujiesher grabbed Guizicheng's arm, and now there were obvious purple and blue scratches on Guizicheng's arm, as if he was poisoned. Guizicheng noticed Mu Xiangshan's gaze and rolled down his sleeves. He also looked at Xiao Jin. Just now, everyone was screaming in fright, but Xiao Jin's expression was very calm, and she didn't panic or fear at all. This obviously didn't match her appearance, and anyone with a discerning eye could tell that there was a problem. Who wouldn't be afraid when seeing a corpse? Guizicheng understood that the Mu family's father and son clearly knew something. However, the police were coming, and after such a big incident, Guizicheng couldn't keep Mu Xiangshan and the others here, so he arranged for someone to send them back. Mu Xiangshan didn't refuse, and when he left with Xiao Jin, he saw Xiao Jin nod silently to him before leaving. Her nod meant that Gujiesher wouldn't come back to life again. On the way home, Mu Xiangshan asked Xiao Jin, "What happened just now?" Xiao Jin said, "It should have been controlled. The duration was very short, and the ability was not strong. About a minute. It was a wizard." Xiao Jin had previously explained the difference between a wizard and a formation master. Mu Xiangshan was a little shocked. Who can make a move on Gujiesher? Is it Guizicheng himself? Xiao Jin shook his head. Guizicheng is not a wizard, but I think he knows about the existence of wizards. There must be someone around him who is a wizard. And it had nothing to do with Qing Yujun. It was Guizicheng's own problem. Mu Xiangshan frowned. What is he trying to do by manipulating the world to decipher zombie? Sigh, he's already dead. I didn't expect him to be so restless even after death. I'm not sure. Xiao Jin thought for a moment, then said softly, "I think he wants to borrow Gujiesher's hand to kill Guizicheng. Because Gujiesher was dead, he came back to life and killed Guizicheng. If Gujiesher was really killed by Guizicheng, there might be rumors that Gujiesher was killed because of him and turned into a vengeful ghost to take revenge." When Mu Xiangshan heard this, his eyes narrowed slightly. Who wants to kill Guizicheng? Xiao Jin. Not the current Gu family. If it was Qing Yujun and the others, then their acting skills were too good. At that time, they really fainted from fright. It wasn't an act. If Qing Yujun or Gu Shuoyu knew that they were the ones who hired someone to do this, they wouldn't be so scared. Chapter 964. In any case, the news of Gujiesher's corpse coming back to life spread that night. After Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan returned to the Mu family, Xiao Jin went to sleep. When she woke up in the morning and went downstairs, she heard Xiao Fei's shocked voice. Old Master Gu's corpse came back to life? Oh my god, how could something so ridiculous happen? She was scared out of her wits. The men of the Mu family were all there. Mu Xiangshan sat in the main seat, but unexpectedly, he wasn't the one who said this. Muzilian described it vividly. It's true. I couldn't believe it when I heard it this morning. Now the news has spread. A corpse came back to life in the middle of the night last night, and it was said that Gu Zicheng almost died. The police came later and took his body away for investigation. If there weren't several witnesses, no one would have believed it. As for the others, they were all listening to him. After Mu Zhenming heard this, he said with some displeasure, "You believe this kind of false news? It must be some kind of physical phenomenon. Muzilian, we have Qiao Jin at home. You have the nerve to talk to me about physical phenomena?" Mu Zhenming, Mu Xiangshan added without batting an eyelid. "It's not fake. He really came back to life. Last night, Qiao Jin and I were at the scene. We saw Gu Jieshe jumping up to kill Gu Zicheng with our own eyes. Everyone subconsciously looked at Qiao Jin, who had just come down from upstairs. Qiao Jin was very calm. Don't look at me. It really has nothing to do with me. Old Master Gu's corpse came back to life for another reason. You didn't bring me along again." Muzilian's attention was obviously not on the main point. He was a little angry. "Why didn't you call me in the middle of the night? Gu Zicheng only called me. His father is dead, and I'm friends with his father. Of course, I have to pay my respects." Mu Xiangshan took a sip of tea and said, "Why did he call you?" "Luckily, I called Qiao Jin. If it wasn't for Qiao Jin last night, Gu Jieshe, that old man, would have turned into a corpse and Gu Zicheng would have really lost his life. If you were at the scene, I'm afraid my old life would also have been lost." Muzilian? Did he really come back to life? Mu Qizhi had never heard of such a thing before. He frowned and asked, "Why would a corpse come to life? It's being controlled by someone." Qiao Jin walked to the dining table. "Old Master Gu is indeed dead. The reason why he came back to life was because he was being manipulated. This is the power of a spiritual reader. As for why he was manipulated, it was probably because he wanted to kill Gu Zicheng. Unfortunately, Qiao Jin was there last night. After all, it was in front of her, and the matter was not clear yet. Of course, when she made her move, no one saw it. Gu Zicheng was probably a little suspicious, but he was full of doubts. Of course, he would not have the time to investigate Qiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan. Xiao Fei was shocked. "Jin, a corpse came back to life. This is a corpse coming back to life. Aren't you afraid?" Just thinking about that scene made Xiao Fei feel suffocated. If she was at the scene, she had no doubt that she would have a heart attack. "Qiao Jin, you'll get used to it. Everyone? Can you get used to this kind of thing?" She smiled. There are too many strange things in the spiritual reader world. It's just the same after seeing too many. She had seen the scene of a massacre even more horrifying than Gu Jieshe's corpse coming back to life. It was just a corpse coming back to life. She knew that the person was completely dead. What was there to be afraid of? Chapter 965. In this world, the thing that was scarier than the unimaginable was the human heart. Mu Qizhi sorted out the main point. The spirit reader controlled the old man's body to kill Gu Zicheng. That is to say, if there is a spirit reader in the Gu family, why kill Gu Zicheng? Mu Xiangshan put down his teacup. You can't say that. At that time, Gu Zicheng thought that his father's eyes had reopened and wanted to wipe his eyes. If it was someone else, Gu Jieshe might have killed that person too. It might not necessarily be Gu Zicheng. The person who controlled the corpse must be someone close to the Gu family. It's not as simple as just wanting to make the corpse come back to life. Just like what Qiao Jin said, the person who controlled Gu Jieshe should have wanted to kill Gu Zicheng. The former goal is not certain, but the purpose is vague. The latter is simpler. When Gu Zicheng died, the Gu family's property fell into the hands of a few illegitimate children and lovers. Of course, Gu Zicheng's first wife, and his son and daughter abroad. After all, now that Gu Jieshe was dead, only Gu Zicheng inherited the property. If Gu Zicheng died, the target would be big. Mu Zhenming nodded and agreed with Mu Xiangshan. If there is such an ability, it is very likely that it is for the property. The second is simply to kill Gu Zicheng. Qiao Jin, what did you feel at that time? The power of control appeared long ago. Qiao Jin tilted his head and pondered for a moment. At present, only Qing Yujun and Gu Shuoyu have appeared. Guizicheng still has 2 sons and a daughter. I can't be sure if there is a spirit reader among them. Moreover, the Gua family had nothing to do with her, so she wouldn't worry so much. Xiao Fei had a headache. What do you mean by want to kill? The Gua family is really chaotic. The old man killed his first wife, and now the corpse suddenly came back to life. The outside world will definitely be lively because of the Gua family's matter for a while. It was to the point of calling the police, and now it was spread everywhere. It would probably be a storm on the internet soon. Mu Zhenming looked at Mu Xiangshan. Dad, when Guizicheng called last night, what did he say? Mu Xiangshan snorted. What else can he say? Although we have our suspicions, we have no evidence. Since he dared to call the police, he obviously isn't afraid. Moreover, this is the Gua family's matter, and now it involves a spiritual reader. I think we should just watch from the side. Mu Xiangshan looked at Xiao Jin and said, don't worry about it. Just watch the show. This was the Gua family's matter to begin with, and if it weren't for that matter, Mu Xiangshan might have taken care of it. Guizicheng had killed his first wife, and now he might be killed by his son. This involved the complicated internal struggle of the Gua family, and Mu Xiangshan certainly wouldn't get involved in this muddy water. Xiao Jin nodded. I won't go either. After all, she had no reason to attack the Gua family. If the person controlling Guizicheng was a demonized spirit reader, she would have to wait until the other party appeared to confirm. However, what the Mu family did not expect was that there would be a dramatic turn of events that afternoon. The news of Guizicheng's corpse coming back to life spread. The corpse was temporarily brought back to the police station for investigation, but in reality, they couldn't find anything. After all, he was dead. However, that afternoon, a lawyer suddenly came to the door and said that he was Guizicheng's private lawyer. Even if Guizicheng died suddenly, he had already left a will. Chapter 966. Even Xiao Jin did not expect this will, because it involved Guizhulian, who seemed to have nothing to do with it. In the will, the shares and related investments of the Gua Corporation naturally belonged to Guizicheng, Guizicheng's first wife, and their son and daughter. He probably did not expect his son to treat him like this, so it was fair to leave. However, what was unexpected was that the other cash flows, including Guizicheng's own private property, only a small part of which belonged to Qing Yujun and a few illegitimate children. 3/4 of it was left to Guizhulian. The funds and the property around the world were worth more than 1 billion yuan. Even if it was not comparable to what Guizicheng had, it was enough to get rid of Qing Yujun and the others. It was said that even Guizicheng was stunned. Guizhulian? Shouldn't it be left to Guizhui and his other grandson? Why did it have to be an unrelated Guizhulian? It was said that after Qing Yujun heard the news, she woke up after fainting in shock, but fainted again when she heard the news. Guizhulian had already run away, but she could still inherit more than 1 billion yuan. Xiao Jin received the news because of Mu Xiangshan. He had sent someone to find out. Although he did not care about the Gua family, he still wanted to know what was going on. Then he received such an unexpected piece of news. When Mu Xiangshan told her about it, he even asked meaningfully, "Is he with you?" Xiao Jin did not deny it. Mu Xiangshan said, "This money belongs to her, so she should take it back. We can't let others take advantage of it." Xiao Jin did not understand. Why would Guizicheng leave the money to Guizhulian? Who knows? Mu Xiangshan sighed. I've only met Guizicheng a few times. How would we know? Xiao Jin was silent for a moment. Mu Xiangshan came up with a bad idea. Since she's with you, wouldn't the money be yours if she inherits it? Xiao Jin laughed. Old master, that's a little too much. Mu Xiangshan snorted. But what he said was also true. Since Guizicheng was left for Guizhulian, and Guizhulian was still living with Mo Jiang, she naturally had to take the money. Of course, it was Guizhulian's own business. Xiao Jin was prepared to tell her. However, if Guizhulian were to go back to handle the procedures, she would probably be obstructed by Qing Yujun and the others. Xiao Jin would have to follow along and watch. Xiao Jin immediately went to find Guizhulian. When he saw Guizhulian, she was in her new apartment building. Although she had changed her name, She still did not dare to go out. She hid in the apartment. Naturally, she did not know that Guijesher had passed away and that she was going to inherit a huge fortune. When Xiao Jin arrived, Mo Jiang was also at home. The place was much bigger now. There was a huge TV screen in the huge living room, and Mo Jiang was playing a horror movie. Guizhulian was trembling in fear. She shrank to the side and did not dare to look up. Mo Jiang hugged the popcorn. Even when the face of the ghost suddenly turned around, the eerie music and the scary scene, her expression did not change at all. Xiao Jin said, Guizhulian is afraid of watching horror movies. Can't you take care of her a little? Mo Jiang glanced at her and said indifferently, she's too timid. She needs to watch more horror movies to train. Xiao Jin sighed and looked at Guizhulian. Let me tell you something. Guizhulian looked up blankly. She was afraid and asked in a small voice, what is it? Chapter 967. She was afraid that it was about the Gua family. But Xiao Jin said, it's about the Gua family. Guizhulian trembled. Xiao Jin continued, it's not a bad thing. It may be a good thing for you. But your grandfather passed away last night? Hearing this, Guizhulian was a little surprised. However, there was not much sadness in her eyes. Passed away? She was just a little confused. She didn't know how to feel about her grandfather. In her memory, her relationship with the Gua family was very ordinary. She had no feelings. She was just a vassal of her sister. Her grandfather was a cheerful old man who was always smiling. However, he only had eyes for her sister. Even her father, Fuzicheng, did the same. She was just an invisible person in this family. So for Guijesher, even if he passed away, in Guizhulian's heart, it probably had the same effect as Guizicheng's sudden death. Because she had no feelings. It was normal that she wasn't too sad at the moment. But after your grandfather passed away, a lawyer came to us and said that he had left a will. Your father inherited the majority of the assets, as well as your mother and sister. But you inherited the most after your father. He left you several expensive properties around the world and some funds, which added up to more than 1 billion yuan. Guizhulian's eyes widened. The potato chips in Mo Jiang's hand also fell. She suddenly felt that the potato chips were not delicious and the horror movies were not good. Then she turned her head and said in disbelief, more than 1 billion yuan? What did 1 billion yuan mean? Mo Jiang still had it now. At least if she had 1 billion yuan, wouldn't it be more than enough to get the villa she wanted? At that time, her eyes lit up. She got up and trotted over in her slippers to urge Guizhulian, hurry up and go back to inherit your inheritance. Guizhulian, she was completely dumbfounded. How could my grandfather leave me so much money? This was impossible. She was not prepared at all. She knew best what she was like in the Gua family. Basically, the number of sentences she talked to her grandfather in a year could be counted with one hand. It could be seen that she didn't feel too sad about her grandfather's death. There was no grandfather-granddaughter relationship between them at all. How could he leave such a huge sum of money for her? Xiao Jin saw that her expression did not seem to be fake. Her emotional fluctuations showed that Guizhulian was very surprised, which meant that she did not know either. That was very puzzling. Xiao Jin just shook his head slightly. I don't know. I just came to tell you that whether you want to go back and inherit that money is your business. Of course. Mo Jiang reached out his hand to clamp Guizhulian's chin and looked down at her. Little poor thing, you have to remember that you are now raised by me and Xiao Jin. Since the money is yours, you have to get it back. Then you don't have to feel like living under someone else's roof. If you are afraid, I can go back with you. I guarantee that the Gua family won't be able to touch you. Guizhulian hesitated. But Mo Jiang had watched a lot of TV series recently and had some experience. Don't be a saint. Since your grandfather is gone, you should keep the money he left you. Even if there is a trap in it, it's fine as long as the will is not fake. You have to take the money. Guizhulian was hesitant. She was timid because she was afraid that she would meet the Gua family and Hao Jiuzong when she went back. Chapter 968. Of course, Xiao Jin didn't care about her. But with Imo Jiang here, he wouldn't give in to her. It would be stupid not to take money. She could handle the formalities as long as she showed up. The lawyer had a law firm. Mu Xiangshan told Xiao Jin about it when they came. She could take Gu Julian there directly. Even if the Gu family knew about it. So what if they knew? Of course, she just gave Hao Jiozong a perfunctory answer. She gave some face to Song Yanqing, so she still had to pretend. Xiao Jin did not show her face in the open. Instead, she followed them in secret. Mo Jiang took Gu Julian to the law firm to inquire about the will. Gu Jiesher's private lawyer was surnamed Gao, who had his own law firm. He was an elite middle-aged man. When Mo Jiang came with Gu Julian, the Gu family happened to be here. Cheng Yujun was still here because of the will. Now Gu Zhui was lying in the hospital and they hadn't found her. But Gu Julian came to the law firm in the blink of an eye. Of course, she thought of the will and flew into a rage. You still have the nerve to show up. You didn't show up when your sister was in trouble. Now that your grandfather is dead and you are rich, you show up. She couldn't maintain her usual elegant posture at all. She looked mean and bitter. After all, before she was with Gu Zicheng, she was a little girl who looked down on others because of her beauty when she was young. Now she was old. No matter how she pretended, she couldn't disguise her character in her bones. Gu Julian was subconsciously afraid when she saw Cheng Yujun. She shrank behind Mo Jiang and said hesitantly, "Mom? I'm not your mom." Cheng Yujun's head was buzzing. Gu Zicheng and Gu Shuiyu were next to her. The other descendants of the Gu family hadn't shown up yet. She didn't know whether they didn't care about their grandfather at all or they didn't have time to come back from abroad. Gu Zicheng was a little surprised to see Gu Julian. He usually didn't care much about this daughter. After all, he had several daughters. Gu Julian wasn't the most outstanding, and she wasn't as flamboyant as Gu Shuoyu. She was usually silent, so as a father, it was inevitable that he would overlook her. However, towards Gu Julian, it could not be said that she was harsh. At least she was a bit better than Cheng Yujun. He thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Dad left his inheritance to her. It's not wrong for her to come back and inherit it." Cheng Yujun was stunned and looked at her in disbelief. "You really want her to inherit? That's over $1 billion. Zhu Yi and I don't even have that much. We only get a few million from the fund every month. Why should she inherit over $1 billion? Gu Zicheng frowned and said, "All the company's shares are with me. Don't you still have me?" Cheng Yujun, "How could that be the same? Most importantly, why was Gu Julian taking the money?" Even if Gu Zicheng's first wife was taken away, she wouldn't be so angry. After all, there was no way to compare. The old man was biased towards Gu Zicheng's first wife, but he usually coaxed her and Gu Zhui, saying that after he died, he would leave some money to Gu Zhui. In the end, Cheng Yujun was shocked. Seeing her unconvinced look, Gu Zicheng said, "What's the use of objecting? We don't have any room to object to Dad's will." After all, it was Gu Jiesher's will. No matter how the descendants objected, it was useless. It wasn't like there wasn't a will. Since he left a will, of course, things should be done according to the will. Chapter 969. Gu Julian was very scared. Gu Zicheng also saw Mo Jiang who brought her here. They didn't know Mo Jiang. They only thought that this woman was amazingly beautiful. Seeing them quarreling here, she only had a faint smile on her lips and looked at her delicate vermilion nail polish. However, Cheng Yujun was so angry about Gu Julian that she didn't care about Mo Jiang at all. Gu Zicheng went in to deal with the will with the lawyer. Cheng Yujun saw Gu Julian's cautious look outside and was irritable. She was so angry that she wanted to grab Gu Julian. Mo Jiang directly stood in front of Gu Julian and looked at Cheng Yujun. "What do you want to do?" Cheng Yujun was stopped by her and was confused. "Who are you?" "I'm calling my daughter. What does it have to do with you?" Mo Jiang poked Cheng Yujun's shoulder with her fingertips. It seemed that she didn't use any force, but she staggered back. "Your daughter? She is Gu Zicheng's daughter, Gu Jiesher's granddaughter. Now she is back to inherit the inheritance. Who are you?" Cheng Yujun's face turned green. Cheng Yujun screamed at her. What do you mean, you lunatic? Mo Jiang clicked her tongue. Boring. Can't you change your lines to be more intimidating? Guizhulian grabbed Mo Jiang's sleeve and looked at Cheng Yujun silently. Xiao Jin watched the scene from behind and also noticed that Hao Jiuzong had come. He received the news quickly. When Mo Jiang and Cheng Yujun were confronting each other, a low male voice came from behind. Julian? Guizhulian trembled and turned her head subconsciously. Hao Jiuzong's tall body was standing in the lobby office outside the law firm. He saw Guizhulian and quickly walked over. Guizhulian panicked and hid behind Mo Jiang even more. Mo Jiang was just about to scold Cheng Yujun when he saw another fly behind him. He looked up and down and immediately understood that this was probably the male lead in Guizhulian's melodramatic 8 o'clock. Hao Jiu was born tall and handsome. Now that he was here, he was simply the most handsome child. When he saw Guizhulian, his jawline tightened. He was obviously unhappy. Why did you run? Guizhulian. She lowered her head and didn't say anything. She didn't even look at Hao Jiuzong. Mo Jiang said, I don't want to see you guys acting out a melodramatic drama. I'm only concerned about when the inheritance procedures will be completed. Mo Jiang was an arrogant woman who only cared about money. Xiao Jin watched from the dark and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Song Yanqing sent her a message. Did you guys meet Hao Jiuzong? Xiao Jin also told Song Yanqing about Guizhulian's inheritance. Xiao Jin replied, Yes, it was very exciting. Hao Jiuzong looked at Mo Jiang with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Cheng Yujun immediately said, Jiuzong, get someone to take her to the hospital. Her sister is still waiting. Hao Jiuzong frowned slightly. He seemed a little dissatisfied with Cheng Yujun's impatience. Zhui is fine now. There's no hurry. Cheng Yujun was stunned. But we still have to be careful. Hao Jiuzong looked at Guizhulian and stretched out his hand. Then come here. Guizhulian hid behind Mo Jiang and didn't say a word. Mo Jiang almost laughed to death. Liana? Why are you acting out an 8 o'clock show? You're her brother-in-law. What does it have to do with you where she goes? Hao Jiuzong's eyes were cold. Who are you? Mo Jiang, her sugar daddy. He provided food and accommodation. If he wasn't her sugar daddy, then what was? Meng Qingyu and the others were all raised by her. Big Boss was only responsible for taking care of them and didn't care about them at all. Hao Jiuzong, Xiao Jin, what had she been acting out recently? Chapter 970. It didn't matter what she was playing. What mattered was that Mo Jiang's thoughts were obviously a little crooked. As soon as she said the word sugar daddy, Hao Jiuzong's face changed. Guizhulian really didn't know what sugar daddy meant. She stayed in the Gui family all year round, so she didn't take everything seriously. Hao Jiuzong was in this circle. How could he not know what sugar daddy meant? Cheng Yujun also exploded when she heard it. She screamed and scolded, Shame on you. How can a woman speak so harshly? Mo Jiang glanced at Cheng Yujun from head to toe and said sarcastically, It's none of your business. After saying that, he rolled his eyes. Mo Jiang was originally beautiful. Almost all the women in front of her would be overshadowed. Cheng Yujun felt even more suffocated when she acted like this. When she was young, she hooked up with Gui Zicheng because of her beauty. Now when she saw the young and beautiful Mo Jiang, she couldn't help but feel sour in her heart. When she couldn't help but scold her, considering that Hao Jiuzong was here, she couldn't lose face in front of her future son-in-law. Miss, please don't talk nonsense. Hao Jiuzong couldn't hear such words being used on Guizhulian. Julien is a member of the Gui family. What's your relationship with her? Of course I'm going to take her back. I'm already so old. If I want to go back, I don't know how to go back by myself. Do I need you to worry about me? Mo Jiang smiled sweetly and turned to look at Guizhulian. Lian, tell him, do you want to go back? Hao Jiuzong just called her like this. Guizhulian glanced at Mo Jiang and then at Hao Jiuzong. But because of the pressure, she just glanced at Hao Jiuzong quickly. Besides, Mo Jiang was here, so she still shook her head. Of course, she didn't want to go back. But how Jiuzong's pupils shrank. Obviously, he didn't understand why Guizhulian didn't go back. Just like why he didn't know Guizhulian was going to run away. You're my daughter. If I ask you to go back, you should go back. I raised you so that you can disobey me? Chen Yujun was about to go crazy, especially when she saw that Guizhulian, who had always been easy to control, was not obedient. Guizhulian was a little scared, but she couldn't say what she saw. Chen Yujun wouldn't admit it, and how Jiuzong wouldn't believe her. I donated my bone marrow to her. My health isn't good either. Ever since I was young, you never let me go out. I wanted to study, I wanted to play with other children, but you didn't allow it. I'm also a human. I just want to live freely by myself. If you gave birth to me because you wanted to save my sister, why didn't you ask for my opinion? When Chen Yujun heard this, she was about to go crazy. So it was a mistake for me to give birth to you? If I didn't give birth to you, what right do you have to live in this world? Your life was given to you by me. I'm your mother. I have the right to make decisions. You're hanging out with these shady women outside just to piss me off, right? Clean your mouth. Mo Jiang flicked his fingernails and looked at Chen Yujun with a cold smile. Otherwise, do you think I don't hit women? Your broken mouth doesn't know how to speak. Be careful or I'll cut off your tongue. Chapter 971. These words were said with a hint of coldness, and Chen Yujun was so frightened that she subconsciously trembled. Although Mo Jiang had recently acted as a murderess witch, her acting skills were terrible. At this moment, looking at Chen Yujun's appearance, the fierceness in her eyes was real, which made Xiao Jin raise her eyebrows. Mo Jiang was the high priestess when she was alive. Her position in Qiancong must be very high. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people willing to sacrifice their lives for her. Although she had lost her memory, she wasn't stupid. It was hard to erase a person's nature. From Mo Jiang's performance, it could be determined that her position as the high priestess was high. Therefore, she didn't care about the consequences. In the eyes of others, she was arrogant, but she didn't allow others to disobey her. How did such an arrogant high priest end up in such a predicament? Even her country was gone. How Jiuzong looked at Mo Jiang and realized that she wasn't an ordinary person. After all, she was used to being arrogant. How Jiuzong quickly made a judgment. But judgment was one thing. He was a member of the Hao family. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of Mo Jiang. Besides, he had to bring Guizhulian back. The girl was hiding behind Mo Jiang. Her words touched his heart. He understood Guizhulian's pain, but her body. Thinking of this, how Jiuzong's voice became softer. Julian, your sister's body is recovering well. She doesn't need you to donate anything. Your body is weak. You should go back to the Gua family to rest. Guizhulian didn't believe him. Mo Jiang went with the flow. You don't have to worry about that. When she inherits the inheritance and gets the money, I will take good care of her and let her rest. You are her brother-in-law. It's not appropriate for you to care about her. People will gossip. How Jiuzong's pupils shrank for a moment. His voice became sullen. Who are you? Mo Jiang, I already said that she has a sugar daddy. How can your memory be so bad at such a young age? Chen Yujun couldn't take it anymore. No, don't even think about it. That money belongs to the old man. It also belongs to me and Zhui. What does it have to do with her? Mo Jiang put on a fake smile. Are you talking to me, auntie? If I remember correctly, this kind of will has to follow the law. Does the law say that it belongs to you? The high priestess didn't learn anything after coming to this world. When she came, she knew that she was going to steal the inheritance. She was well prepared. Today's money was hers, Guizhulian's. No one could say anything about it. The big boss was still watching from behind. Mo Jiang was not at all weak when it came to fighting. How long would it take for her to buy a big villa with the small amount of money she earned from acting? Now that someone was giving him money, it was impossible for him to let go. Chen Yujun choked half to death. At the same time, she was even angrier. She couldn't understand why that old fart left the money to Gujulian. Thinking of Gujiesher, she remembered Gujiesher's corpse. Although Guizicheng said that there was an accident, it wasn't a corpse. After all, they had fainted. But Qing Yujun still didn't believe it. It wasn't like she hadn't seen some unbelievable things. At this moment, when he thought of Gujiesher's appearance, his face turned pale and he shivered with lingering fear. She was already dead. Why did she have to scare her family? Damn it. Chapter 972. Mo Jiang didn't know what she was thinking, but he was satisfied that Qing Yujun didn't say anything. She pointed to the direction where Guizicheng had just entered. The lawyer is inside, right? No one answered her. Hao Jiuzong's deep eyes only fell on Gujulian. Gujulian had been staying behind Mo Jiang. Feeling the sharp gaze on her back, she didn't dare to raise her head. Mo Jiang didn't wait for their answer and directly went in with Gujulian. When they passed by Qing Yujun, for some reason, Qing Yujun reached out to grab Gujulian. This time, Mo Jiang did not hold back and pushed Qing Yujun away. She was so strong that Qing Yujun couldn't compare with her. She directly pushed Qing Yujun to the wall. Her back and shoulder hit the hard wall, and Qing Yujun cried out in pain. Seeing this, Hao Jiuzong saw that Qing Yujun had made the first move, but after all, she was his future mother-in-law. He went forward and asked, "Aunt Qing, are you okay?" Qing Yujun looked at Mo Jiang and Gujulian's backs with hatred. She didn't dare to reach out to pull them. She couldn't let them go in without worry, so she followed them in. Seeing this, Hao Jiuzong naturally followed them into the lawyer's office. This lawyer was hired by Gujiesher when he was alive. He was a very trusted person, and the will was left with him. At this moment he saw Gujulian. Although Gujulian had a fake identity now, it was temporary, and it didn't conflict with her real identity. The main thing was that Xiao Jin didn't expect Gujiesher to leave Gujulian such a thing. It made the fake information a little redundant. Mo Jiang came in with Gujulian. Guizicheng was discussing the will with the lawyer. When he saw Gujulian, the lawyer also guessed Gujulian's identity. After confirming Gujulian's identity, the lawyer had no interest in the Gu family's melodramatic affairs. Under Qing Yujun's hateful gaze, he completed the distribution of Gujulian. However, her identity information was at home, and it needed to be further confirmed. Guizicheng didn't seem to care too much about Gujulian's inheritance. He also didn't pay much attention to this daughter of his. Xiao Jin watched from the outside using the array formation. He could see that Guizicheng was not obsessed with money. He simply didn't care much about the Gu family, even if Qing Yujun was his wife. He didn't object to Gujulian inheriting the inheritance. He even scolded Qing Yujun when she didn't want to hand over Gujulian's identity document. He didn't care about her face at all. This angered Qing Yujun even more. Gujulian had inherited more than 1 billion yuan, and the transfer of the inheritance would take some time. However, Gujulian was still unwilling to return to the Gu family. Guizicheng did not force her and said that if there was anything, the lawyer would inform her. Seeing that Guizicheng didn't mind Mo Jiang taking Gujulian away, Qing Yujun couldn't help but ask Guizicheng, "Do you have a conscience? Don't you think about her pearling skills in the hospital? What if something happened to her pearling skills and she needed to donate her bone marrow? Didn't Pearling recover from her illness 2 years ago?" Guizicheng frowned. "I've already asked around at the hospital. Pearling was only in some pain. After the painkiller injection, her condition improved a lot. The doctor didn't say anything else. What are you worried about? Or are you afraid that if something doesn't happen to her, you won't be at peace?" Chapter 973. Qing Yujun's face turned pale. Qing Yujun was insulted by Mo Jiang and others outside, and she was humiliated by her husband inside. How could Qing Yujun understand? Mo Jiang understood. He looked at Qing Yujun's clown face and couldn't help sneering. He took Gujulian and was about to leave. Qing Yujun didn't stop him. She was immersed in the grief that her husband was ruthless to her. However, Hao Jiuzong, who hadn't said anything about the distribution of the will, had his eyes on Guizhulian. Of course, he was unwilling to let Mo Jiang and Guizhulian leave now. Julian? He called Guizhulian. Guizhulian paused for a moment, but Mo Jiang didn't stop. He just took her wrist, forcing Guizhulian to continue to follow Mo Jiang's footsteps. Hao Jiuzong saw that he couldn't stop them, so he didn't directly go forward to catch Guizhulian. He just looked at their backs as they left, narrowing his eyes slightly, and the emotions in his eyes were very dangerous. Now that he had seen them, it was easier to find out Mo Jiang's identity. Besides, she was so beautiful, so it was much easier to find out information. He directly called someone to follow Mo Jiang and others. Qiao Jin had been watching outside. At this time, after Mo Jiang and Guizhulian dealt with things, she cast a magic circle to block Hao Jiuzong's eyes and took them back by taxi. I just saw it. Mo Jiang couldn't help but be a little excited. There are 3 properties, a villa in New York, an apartment in Manhattan, and one in London. The total value is more than 500 million yuan. She couldn't help but click her tongue. They are really rich. The villa she liked was 300 million yuan. After all, it was an expensive villa in the capital, and the location of the land was not comparable to ordinary properties. The house prices in these places were not cheap, and 500 million yuan was already amazing. Besides, there was 900 million yuan in cash in the hands of a foundation, which was all left to Guizhulian. Of course, she couldn't take it out at once, but could only receive it in installments. At most, she could get 50 million yuan a year. She didn't know why Guizhulian did this. Qiao Jin glanced at Guizhulian, who kept her head down. She looked very sad, as if she couldn't be happy about inheriting the inheritance. Probably because of what she had gone through, she wasn't that keen on money. Just like Guizhicheng. It was as though Qiao Jin paused for a moment and glanced at Guizhulian. Unlike Mo Jiang, she didn't have any ulterior motives for Guizhulian's money. Mo Jiang was also immersed in the joyous atmosphere. Qiao Jin had been paying attention to Guizhulian and suddenly said, "When you escaped," Qiao Jin's sudden words caused Guizhulian to raise her head. Her eyes were still slightly red. They were not afraid of being overheard by the driver. Qiao Jin covered his ears and whispered, "Are you sure you heard your mother say that she wanted to kill you?" Guizhulian was stunned for a moment. She thought for about 3 seconds before slowly nodding her head. It was as if she couldn't accept this matter. Even now, thinking about it made her feel extremely sad. Mo Jiang was very concerned about money. At this moment, when he heard Qiao Jin's words, he suddenly paused and tilted his head to look at Guizhulian. Then he raised his head and looked at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's eyes were calm and emotionless, as if he had just asked something unimportant. Mo Jiang seemed to have thought of something. He scratched his chin with his fingertips and looked at Guizhulian with an ambiguous smile. Guizhulian didn't notice Mo Jiang's smile because her head was lowered. Chapter 974. After returning home, Guizhulian hid in her room. Mo Jiang lay on the sofa and watched TV with his head propped up. He said with some interest, "I didn't expect the little thing to have 2 faces." Qiao Jin pursed his lips and smiled faintly. "Are you sure it's 2 faces?" Mo Jiang only said, "Her mother doesn't look like she's going to kill someone." She and Qiao Jin had both met Cheng Yujun directly. If Cheng Yujun really wanted to kill Guizhulian, she wouldn't have hidden herself. Her mother looked like a brainless person who only wanted Guizhulian to go back. She only had eyes for her eldest daughter. If she really wanted to kill Guizhulian, she wouldn't have done it so obviously. Qiao Jin poured himself a glass of water and said calmly, "We don't have evidence." If Cheng Yujun didn't have a problem, then Guizhulian was lying. Why did she lie? Because she was afraid? Or because of other reasons? It was reasonable for her to lie because she was afraid. It was possible that she didn't want to go back, or that she misheard and misunderstood. However, the sudden appearance of Guizhulian's inheritance to Guizhulian made Qiao Jin feel that this girl was a little interesting. Mo Jiang smiled. "Why do we need evidence for this kind of thing? We'll know in a few days. Besides, Since you left her here, she can't do anything in my hands. At least her inheritance is real, right? Xiao Jin. You're right. But it's an inheritance after all. This is something worth celebrating. Let's call Meng Qingyu and the others out for dinner tonight. Mo Jiang. Okay, Big Boss knew better than she did. Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang called Meng Qingyu, but they didn't go out for dinner. When Meng Qingyu heard that there was such a good thing, she volunteered to cook and buy groceries on the way. With Yang Qiulu's help, they could eat whatever they wanted. While Xiao Jin was eating, just as they expected, the police brought Gujiesher's body back for investigation, but they didn't find anything. Plus, it was too unbelievable, so they had to deal with it as soon as possible. It was said that Gujiesher's body was burned that night. Now that his body had been thoroughly burned, how was he going to come back to life? Guzicheng brought the ashes back to the Gu family. The funeral still had to be held. Even if the people outside knew that Gujiesher had come back to life, there were only a few people present at the time. No one would believe it if they didn't see it with their own eyes. They just treated it as an unexpected piece of news. Those who should attend the funeral still had to attend. Mu Xiangshan also had to bring the Mu family to participate. After all, Gujiesher was an old friend that he had not seen for many years. In the end, Gujiesher had passed away not long after they had met. Guzicheng quickly arranged Gujiesher's funeral while dealing with the will. It was 3 days after Gujiesher's death. When Mu Xiangshan received the news, they all had to go. Xiao Jin also had to bring along Gujulian. After all, they had to inherit the inheritance. It wouldn't be right if they didn't attend their grandfather's funeral. When the funeral was held, the other children of the Gu family also appeared, including Guzicheng's first wife. She brought her son and daughter to the funeral. She wore a black trench coat and a felt hat of the same color. There was a black gauze flower on the brim of the hat. She was a very elegant woman. The moment Xiao Jin saw her, she was certain of one thing. Guzicheng's first wife was a spiritual reader. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.